And good morning. It is a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. That would make me Glenn Clark. Griffin's here. Prince Charles is here this morning as well. Much to do on a Tuesday edition of the program. This week's NFL draft segment, our old friend Kyle Stackpole. Once upon a time, an intern right here at Press Box. Proof that you can go on to find success. You're not doomed, Charles. A lot of opportunity ahead. Kyle's now with CBS Sports covering the NFL draft. We will chat with him in a bit. Also, it's Tuesday. Patrick Stevens will join us, talk some Terps, college hoops. Maryland's got Michigan State tonight on the road. And later on this morning. Looking forward to... I've never had a conversation before with Sammi Siragusa, who is Tony's daughter. I believe, if I'm doing my math correct, you see Tony holding Sammi at the end of Bullies of Baltimore when the Ravens won the Super Bowl. I believe that's her. I'm going to make sure that I'm right about that when we talk to her. But Sammi not only is going to tell us about, seeing her dad and the way he was honored on Sunday, but also what they're doing to try to keep his legacy going with something called Goose Flights. And our friends at Be More Around Town did an event to raise some money. Jimmy's did an event to raise some money for Goose Flights. She's going to tell us a little bit more about that. And also this morning, Anthony Adams, who was the longtime assistant coach to Pete Caringi at UMBC, of course, last week. Pete Caringi announced his retirement, an utter legend at UMBC, and Anthony Adams, his longtime assistant, is going to take over as the new head coach, so we're going to catch up with him as well. So lots to do on the program today. Today's show is brought to you by PressBoxOnline.com/offers. That's PressBoxOnline.com/offers. Eagles or Chiefs? Place your Super Bowl bets with your favorite team and pick from hundreds of fun prop bets. Thousands of dollars in special sign-up offers with the top sports books are available at PressBoxOnline.com/offers. Go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers right now and join the fun with great offers from FanDuel, BetMGM, Barstool, and more. So I had a couple people check in yesterday that were a little bit surprised that I didn't talk about this alleged report from Jeremy Fowler over the weekend that the Ravens and Lamar Jackson were $100 million off. So here's the reason why I didn't talk about that on yesterday's show. It wasn't a report. And I don't mean this with any due disrespect to Jeremy Fowler, who I think we've had on a number of times over the years. Jeremy Fowler would not tell you that it was a report. He would tell you that he was talking about the fact that there is this belief that the largest fully guaranteed deal the Ravens offered. There's a difference between, fully guaranteed and fully guaranteed, right? Like there's this, NFL contract reporting is so insanely stupid. But fully guaranteed is like guaranteed no matter what at signing. If for some reason tomorrow you were to suffer an injury that were to prevent you from playing football ever again, you would definitely still get this money. Fully guaranteed. And the word was $133 million. Was the highest fully guaranteed number. Completely, fully, totally guaranteed number that was put on the table. With our belief being that Lamar Jackson wants a fully guaranteed deal. So if those things are true, then there would be probably about $100 million difference. Now that number sounds outrageous. The Ravens and Lamar Jackson are $100 million apart. No, I keep trying to tell you. They're really not. They're apart in what's fully guaranteed, and depending on who you talk to, what your opinion is. We were trying to track down Joe Banner this week because he and I ended up having a little bit of a back and forth on Twitter. The argument can be made either way. You remember Dominique Foxworth coming on with us a couple months ago and making the argument that if you're Lamar Jackson, you shouldn't be living and dying over what's fully guaranteed because this is the NFL and quarterbacks all get their money in the NFL. That's the way that it goes. Quarterbacks don't get released. The contracts are largely structured that you would essentially have to be hit by a bus or something like that in order for you to not get all of your money. And then some, for the most part. And that's the argument that Joe Banner was making at the 33rd team. Joe Banner was essentially saying, hey, look, come on, what are we doing here? You're going to get your money. Why mess with this? Whatever that offer is, $200+ million, you're going to get your money. On the flip side, what for some reason nobody wants to say is, well, if they're going to give him his money, why can't they just make it guaranteed? And that was my point that I brought up last week that Joe Banner ended up pushing back on for some reason. I still haven't gotten an answer as to why. Why is the onus on Lamar Jackson individually to just say, hey, look, this is a good offer. I'm going to get my money anyway. Let's just go ahead and take it. As I've said a billion times, why is it worth it to the Ravens to risk not having their quarterback over a dispute about how much cap flexibility they might have in the 5th year of a deal? Because they're not actually $100 million apart. It's not like the Ravens are saying, we think you're worth $100 million over 5 years, and Lamar Jackson's saying, I think I'm worth 200. The difference is in what's fully guaranteed, which is kind of silly to be debating over when, again, the overwhelmingly likely scenario is the quarterback's going to get every penny. For some reason, we've decided that Lamar Jackson should be the one to give in on that and not the Ravens. I mean, I get it. I know why the Ravens would like Lamar Jackson to be the one to give in, and I know why any team would like the player to be the one to give in on it. I don't know why we wouldn't say the opposite thing, which is why is it worth it to the Ravens to potentially go through quarterback purgatory over, again, what amounts to a debate about a little bit of cap flexibility at the end of the contract. In the very minimal chance that something goes drastically wrong, how you can salvage it. So that's why I'm not discussing this report, because it wasn't a report. It was just reacting to what we think the knowledge is. And that number, while it sounds explosive, is not nearly as explosive. This is not a debate about what the contract value should be or how much annually someone should be paid. The debate is about full guarantees. And I'll continue to say the exact same thing that I've said a billion times. It would be shameful. It would be embarrassing if the Ravens became the first team to fumble a truly franchise quarterback over a debate about back-end cap flexibility in a contract. I mean, that's low rent. That's almost poverty franchise type of stuff. Now, I get it. It's unfair to say that because nobody else, presumably, has been put in a spot where they either had to choose fully guaranteed versus losing the quarterback. But, I mean, that's embarrassing that you would consider losing a quarterback, having to start over, hey, man, we might lose a little bit of cap flexibility at the back end of a contract. So there's your answer. There's why it wasn't something that I felt the need to talk about. There's this new thing that I need you guys to do. Is everything okay over there, by the way?
Yeah.
We got to pay attention to the show. Like, I don't know what's going on the phone, but we got to pay attention to the show. We're doing a show now, okay? I'm not trying to scold you or act like your dad, but like we've been doing this for a long time. Yeah. We got to be involved in the show. If there's something wrong, tell me. Just say, hey, man, there's something wrong. I got to get it fixed. That's okay. I get it. This is the Griffin's the producer of the show. When something goes wrong, he's got to be the one to fix it. But if everything's good, like you can't be staring off into space or looking at the computer or something like that. We're doing a show. Sorry, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. There's no other way to do this. I can't stop the show and do that and handle it off the air. I go back to this, right? I derailed myself in the process. That's everything goes wrong in these moments. Everything goes wrong. So let me go back to this for a second, right? Let me go back to where we are. We're still waiting, obviously. We're still holding with bated breath. Every time something pops up on your phone that looks like an alert or looks like it says news or something along those lines, it's not on. Is it embarrassing how many companies are willing to give you a push notification or something like that to generate clickbait? And it's shameful? Yeah, it's shameful. It's embarrassing when NBC Sports or whoever sends out a push notification that says something like, report, Ravens and Lamar Jackson are $100 million apart. But it's the same thing I say about you complaining about the Skip Bayless show. It's on you at some point. At some point, the onus is on us to separate what's actually news or what's actually real from carnival barking. And when somebody sends something like that out, you've got to click through it. If you think it might be news, click through it, read the story, and find out if it is. If it's just someone regurgitating some clip from another talk show, then you know your answer. It ain't news. It ain't real. You can handle it. Most of you. Some of you probably can't. Some of you, admittedly, are probably quite dumb. I don't think you listen to this show. I hope not. But I get there are lots of sports fans who are. And unfortunately, this is what Elon Musk would say, this is what he wants. He wants everything to be muddled so we don't know the difference between news and nonsense. There are still people that are capable of separating nonsense from news. And nothing about this weekend, no matter what dude with a check mark he paid for or was not deserved on Twitter. And these guys, Dove Clive, I don't even remember the name, Dove Kleiman or Cliveman or whatever, Ari Meyerhoff, they might be the nicest guys in the world. They might be the best humanitarians I've ever known. But you should delete them. Stop following them on Twitter. They've never once reported something. All they do is regurgitate what someone else says in ways that are specifically meant to generate views. Their job is one thing: get you to click, get you to follow, get you to like, get you to retweet. Engagement. That's it. That's all they do. You are not going to learn anything. And you're going to end up embarrassing yourself because in their attempt to rewrite news or something to make it seem like it's news, you're going to get caught. And you're going to end up thinking something was news that wasn't. And again, I don't have anything against those people. What do you mean, you people? I don't have anything against those people. They're doing their job. I don't even know. I don't know what a job is. I don't know if they have a job. They're employed by someone, or they've just created this thing on the internet. There are other people that do it in different ways. There are lots of people that now do it with YouTube. There's nothing original about it. There's nothing. They're not reporting something. They're just trying to use someone else's content, repurpose it, make it look like their own, and get you to click. People who I like do. I like Bobby Trossett. I like him. But Bobby's not doing anything original. I love you, Bobby. God bless you. I'm not mad at you. Do whatever you got to do. But don't go there thinking that there's something newsworthy. Reporters will do that. And even they get got sometimes, admittedly. But specifically those dudes and those push notifications that you get, if the push notification says Lamar Jackson traded to the Bears, I think you can probably go ahead and assume that's news. Or Lamar Jackson agrees to a new contract. That's probably news. But anything else until you get one of those, dismiss it. Dismiss it. It ain't worth it. There is no value to any of that. It's just people trying to capitalize on the fact that we are desperately interested in what's going on with Lamar Jackson, and while there is no meat on the bone, there's nothing there, they're trying to find it because they know there's interest, and interest equals clicks. Nah! Get off my lawn. A very old man yelling at cloud at the moment. I feel very, very much like the old man that's yelling at the cloud right now. All right, you guys are being very quiet this morning. What's going on in this room?
No, I think you're right. I also don't
thank you.
care much about Ari Mirov or Dove Kleiman.
Thank you.
I think they don't really bring anything to the NFL. I guess coverage.
Very weird. It's like I'm sitting here doing a show and I'm like waiting for. I'm just getting a lot of blank stares right now.
I've noticed the last couple times I've come in, you usually start the show with like a 15-minute Lamar Jackson.
It's okay to have a thought or a jump. It's okay to jump in. It's okay to jump in. Like, if it's relevant, if it can add to the conversation. Not if it derails it, of course. If it derails it, then it's problematic. But it's okay to jump in and have a thought that adds to it or a question or something along those lines.
I have noticed on for Rappaport, and I think that's the only reporter that I
look, all of them are a little bit guilty right now. Yeah. Again, whenever there's anything that you know is a hot button. Lamar Jackson is a hot button issue because not only is everybody in Baltimore freaked out about it, but there's, my buddy Rami, who filled in for you last week, was like texting me last night. You make fun of me for wanting the Jets to get Aaron Rodgers, but what if the Ravens were to trade Lamar Jackson? Would you be interested in Aaron Rodgers? Like, there are 60 other fan bases that are interested in Lamar Jackson because, again, this type of player is never available in the NFL. This has never happened before. There is no comparison to this. Not that we think yet with any reason that he's actually available. But the possibility of it is unheard of. So anytime Ian Rappaport is told, no doubt on Sunday, on Sunday it's going to suck. Because all of these networks are going to be doing 8 hours worth of coverage for a football game. And they're all going to tell their insiders, give me something related to Lamar because it's the biggest story of the NFL offseason. And there's only 2 teams that are playing left. So 30 teams are in the offseason. So all of them are going to be tasked during the course of these on NFL Network, ESPN, Fox, all of them that are doing Super Bowl coverage on Sunday. All of their insiders, Jake Glazer, Chris Mortensen, Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, every single one will be tasked with give me something about Lamar Jackson. Oh, my God. We're going to be dodging bombs on Sunday because none of them are likely to have anything that's actually informative as much as it's just the same thing. But every time one of them says something, there's going to be 60 people on Twitter who are going to repurpose it and retweet it as news. It's going to be hell on Sunday. Throw your phone in the ocean on Sunday.
You even heard it this past weekend. Like, the ESPN covered the Pro Bowl, and it was very much they were using the fact that Tyler Huntley was in it to kind of play into the whole conversation.
It's
of
the
Lamar
biggest
contract.
Story in football.
And
it's
like,
by far.
You hear them talking, they're like, "Oh, Tyler Huntley looks pretty good," and it's like, stop.
Get the F out of here with that. That's
the offense went from 5 touchdowns a game to 2 touchdowns.
He was throwing to Jamar Chase. And,
that's absurd. I mean, that's just he wasn't playing football. That wasn't football. God. Stop.
See what happens when you give him receivers.
We've seen Tyler Huntley play football. That wasn't football on Sunday. That was something else. I looked pretty good, by the way, throwing the football in the little hole over at Dave & Buster's with my son on Saturday. You think I should be the one that gets signed up to be the quarterback? Tell you what, we killed it at. We killed it at the Hot Wheels racing game over at Dave & Buster's on Sunday. We did a damn good job. He got a nice little Mario plush toy because we got so many tickets over at Dave & Buster's on Saturday. No free advertising. Babe and Dusters. That's where we were. Babe and Dusters on Sunday. Enjoyed our time there. It's going to be hell. Watch your head. Keep your head on a swivel on Sunday. I'm telling you, go make some plans. Avoid all of the pregame. Avoid your phone throughout the course of the day. Do not do anything related to the internet, phone, or television until 6:30. I'm telling you, it's going to be awful because it's just going to be nothing but speculation, nothing but nonsense, and every single one of them is going to be retweeted and repurposed, and you're going to be confused into thinking somebody's reporting something when nobody's going to be reporting anything. Stop. It's just going to be a lot of, well, I've heard there are teams that are poking around. I've heard that. Stop. None of it is valuable. They all have to do it because I get it. It's the biggest story in football. One of the biggest stories, just separated from, like criminal activities. One of the biggest stories in the history of football because, again, no one has ever done this. No team in football history has ever fumbled a franchise quarterback in the prime of their career. It doesn't happen, which is why it's so absurd that we are in this place. But that's why it is fueling all of this interest and why, again, so much it's going to be the Kelsey brothers and Lamar Jackson coverage on Sunday. You're getting that. I don't even know what else they're going to do for 6 hours on a pregame show. My God, what else is even all that interesting?
You can switch over to the Puppy Bowl.
Well, I will definitely watch the Puppy Bowl because I watch the Puppy Bowl every year because the Puppy Bowl is great. It's a 10.5. It's wonderful. All right, let's talk now about a man. I'm mad at him, too. And I like Kyle. He's one of my favorites. He used to work here, and he's gone on to do wonderful things. But I'm mad at him because he's fueling the nonsense by having the Ravens draft a quarterback in the first round of his mock draft. God, our buddy. We do NFL draft coverage every week. Kyle Stackpole is done good. He has somehow overcome being an intern here and having to transcribe interviews, and he's gone on to do great things at CBSSports.com, and he's back with us now here on GCR. Kyle, good morning, man. It's great to catch up with you as always. Thank you for taking the time.
Hey, Glenn, what's going on, man?
It's great to hear you. Everything is good, except, we got to live in this dude, what we're dealing with right now where every day somebody wants to come at me with some sort of new report about Lamar Jackson, and none of them have any value at all. None of them are actually reports. They're just some dude, taking something, repurposing it on Twitter and making it seem like it's a report when it was just a guy answering a question on a talk show somewhere. I want to rip my head off right now, Kyle. I have no interest in doing any of this. It sucks. All right. Now I got to fight with you. I love you. You know that, right?
Oh, yeah.
I have the idea of the Ravens. Here's what I don't think it's impossible. I mean, how can I possibly think it's impossible at this point the Ravens could end up moving on from Lamar Jackson? Here we are. We're in the position that we're in. I can't fathom that if you're moving on from Lamar Jackson or preparing to move on from Lamar Jackson, it's to draft a quarterback with the 22nd pick in the draft, given the roster that you have put together, right? Like, and I get it. So, you probably point out, hey, Lamar was the 30. He was the end of the first round. Jalen Hurts was a second rounder. It's not like you can't find those quarterbacks. But if you're building the team that you've built, it's insane to me to think that you would do that, move on from your quarterback, and take another chance on a back-end first rounder and just hope that it works out somehow. Why do you think Anthony Richardson makes sense for them?
Yeah, so I think the main thing with this is that, you do so many mock drafts before the draft as things go on. And I think they become so redundant sometimes that you explore different possibilities. So I have them drafting Anthony Richardson. And, I explained my reasoning of, if you want to get someone like Lamar Jackson, Anthony Richardson, his skill set is by far the closest thing you're going to get in this draft class. That being said, it's not to say that I think the Ravens should do this. So it's more a product of exploring the possibilities for different teams as all this speculation is fueled because we still have months before the actual draft comes. So I totally get what you're saying. I just think if there was a scenario where they do move on from him, I agree with you. I don't think they should move on with him. There's no reason why. He's one of the most, if not the most dynamic, quarterback, dual threat quarterback in the league. Just pay the guy what he wants. Right. But that's a scenario that is worth exploring during this period where we're just finished up with the Senior Bowl. We're still a couple weeks away from the Combine, and then we still have a month before the NFL draft. So, yeah, it's more about exploring the possibilities than, hey, the Ravens should move on from Lamar and draft Anthony Richardson and like you said, hope his skill sets translate to, even half or more of what Lamar has been. So he's been in Baltimore.
Let me flesh it out. Look, you are far from the only person. It almost seems like Anthony Richardson has been the sexiest pick among even some of the top draft analysts this year. Let me flesh this thing out a little bit, because my opinion would be, as insane as I think it would be to move on from Lamar Jackson, if you do, you trade into the top 6, you go get a franchise quarterback, and you improve your odds of finding your next rock star quarterback. Again, I would prefer to just keep the rock star quarterback that you have, but if for whatever reason you're moving on, you move on realistically knowing we have to get the guy, not a guy. Is there a world in which Anthony Richardson really is the next Lamar Jackson or really is the next Jalen Hurts, and they could be so smart that they could acquire a bunch of picks, still use the 22nd pick on a quarterback, and they could come out looking like geniuses like when they drafted Lamar Jackson originally?
Well, that's why I think there is all this speculation, because just the Lamar story of where he was drafted and what they were able to do with him and how Lamar was seen as an NFL quarterback coming into the league. So you have people that are going to think, hey, if the Ravens did this with Lamar, who's to say they can't do this with another quarterback with a similar skill set? The other thing would be if, in my mock draft, I had them, franchising Lamar and having Richardson learn behind him. Another thing they could do, they get rid of, if they were to get rid of Lamar, you try to bring in a veteran and have Richardson learn behind him. But I think mostly the reason that people would think that they could turn Anthony Richardson into a promising dual threat quarterback is because of what they did with Lamar. They have a lot more credibility in that sense than another team just drafting a quarterback based on a lot of raw potential and being able to turn him into something great in the NFL.
I'm going to wrap up the quarterback conversation this way. If they were to move up significantly high in the draft, right? Like, you've got a bunch of trades at the top. Is there a place that you would be convinced, if they, for whatever reason, again, they're moving on from Lamar Jackson, they wanted to get one of the top quarterbacks in this draft, is there a spot that you say, like, they have to get into the top 5 or there's no chance of getting one of those guys? Like, what is your reality for where you think Stroud, Levis, Young end up playing out?
Yeah, I think they would have to get in the top 5. There's just so many quarterback-needy teams. I mean, the Texans, you would assume they're drafting a quarterback. The Colts, you would assume they're drafting a quarterback. The Panthers, like, those are 3 teams that need quarterbacks badly. And Frank Reich in Indianapolis, he's failed with so many veterans that he's going to be pushing to go up for a rookie. Jim Irsay, same thing. I don't think he'll allow Chris Ballard to go get another veteran quarterback. He's going to be like, do whatever you can do to get our number 1 quarterback in this draft, whether that means giving up a bunch of draft picks to move up to number 1. So I think that's what's so intriguing about the top, is that with the number 1 team, the Bears not needing a quarterback, there's going to be so much wheeling and dealing going on of where can we be in the best position to get our QB of the future, because I think those 3 guys have been lumped together, and I'd be surprised if it isn't in the first 5 picks.
Okay.
I don't. Stroud and Young aren't making it past 5 for sure.
Right.
Levis is a little different. I feel like there can be some teams that, they see his traits, but his production last year, for a variety of different reasons, wasn't where it needed to be. I could see him maybe dropping a little bit, but those first 2 guys they're just locks to go at the top. It almost seems likely they're going to go 1-2 after, assuming the Bears are going to trade out.
We're talking with Kyle Stackpole, CBSSports.com. He's with us here on GCR. Kyle, the wide receiver position is the one that the Ravens have needed to upgrade, for eternity, since they've existed as a franchise, and probably about as desperate as they've ever been after they had to line up Demarcus Robinson as their number 1 receiver in a playoff game this year, which is one of the more depressing sentences we've ever uttered. There seems to be consensus about the top 3 wide receivers in this draft but not really consensus about where they're going to end up going. And, of course, we're talking about Quentin Johnston, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Jordan Addison. You've got Addison in the top 10. Can you just sort of take me through those three guys, where you see them being, what the likelihood would be that one of them would maybe still be sitting there at 22, and how different you think they are as far as potentially being number one wide receivers in the NFL?
Yeah, for sure. I think with Addison and going at number 9, and I think I mentioned it in the mock draft of just how the Seahawks traded back and how the board fell. I think they really want an edge rusher, and if they're not getting Tyree Wilson or Miles Murphy, then they're kind of stuck a little bit. And it's okay, who should we grab? What position should we grab? So I think the ceiling is for that first receiver is probably like 9, 10. If someone maybe reaches a little bit, I think they're all more, teens to 20s types receivers. And I think it's kind of just like pick your poison. You have Quentin Johnston, who's the physically gifted. He's got the size, he's got the speed. He's more of a contested catch guy. Whereas Jordan Addison, he has more speed. He has route running ability. And then Jackson Smith-Njigba, who is a little more of a wild card because he was basically hurt for much of this year. But if he didn't get hurt, he could have been the number one consensus in the class just based on his ability to gain separation. He's more of a all-around receiver, whereas I feel like Addison's more of a speed guy and Johnston's more of the jump ball, kind of be more physical at the catch point. So I think personally for the Ravens, just based on what they have now, that Quentin Johnston would be the best fit, just to kind of complement Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman. Okay. And I do think there's a scenario where he's available at that spot, because I don't think like last year you had the Saints just doing what they did to go up and get Olave and the receivers. There was a run on receivers early. I don't necessarily see that happening this year. So I think, and I'm not saying that I think Johnson's the best. I'm not saying the other guys wouldn't be good fits in Baltimore, but I do think that at least one of them will be available when the Ravens pick, so that if they want to get a receiver, that someone's going to be available for them to add 13.
The next receiver you have going off the board is Jalen Hyatt after that trio, and we've seen some other folks that are high on Kayshon Boutte from LSU. I guess my question would be, what do you think the separation is between those top three? That it's kind of a consensus on those three guys. And the next, if for whatever reason there were to be a run on receivers, right, in the teens, is there still a receiver who really is worth drafting with the 22nd overall pick?
Yeah, I think after those top three, it's more of a kind of pick your poison. Like you have, like you said, Kayshon Boutte, he had a strange year after having a really good rookie year. And then Jalen Hyatt, who just did the opposite. He totally exploded for Tennessee this year. And you also have Zay Flowers from Boston College, he's more seen as a second-round pick, but maybe he could sneak into the first round. So I think if those three are gone and Baltimore falls in love with one of these receivers, I don't think it would necessarily be a reach for them to take that receiver there. I think it's just more of it's more team-based with those after those top three, where you kind of, a lot of teams would be happy to grab those first three receivers within the first 20 to 25 picks.
Kyle, before I let you go, we know the Ravens, particularly in the last few years, have tried to build their defense secondary in, and have definitely believed in you can never have enough cornerbacks. And with Marcus Peters, clearly kind of taking a step back and his future being a little bit in question in Baltimore, I do think the cornerback position is right back into play. And the name that I'm telling you, Kyle, I don't know how much you know about the history here, but if Joey Porter Jr. were to end up becoming a Baltimore Raven, it would be one of the wildest stories in the history of the city of Baltimore, because his father is the most hated player in the history of the Ravens-Steelers rivalry. You've got him going a lot. You've got him in the top 10. Are you confident that he really is? That's the world in which Joey Porter Jr. is coming off the board.
Yeah, I think it's around there. I think it's like 10 to I would say like late teens maybe would be kind of the range. So I don't think he'll personally. I mean, in terms of storylines, that would be tremendous.
Dude, it would be electric. Like, it would be – I would get a week's worth of coverage out of Joey Porter Jr. becoming a Baltimore Raven.
Oh, for sure. But I don't know. He's been, one of the risers, I feel like, since the season ended. And I think a lot of teams are going to, really like him with what he's able to do at the Combine and just how he performed the Big Ten this year. There's another guy – not going to bring the headlines of Porter, but I think Keely Ringo from Georgia could be really, really that perfect match for Baltimore, because he was, before the year, he was seen as the number one cornerback. And I think people thought he was going to go in the top 5. He wouldn't go outside the top 10, but he wasn't as good this year. He has all the skills to be really, really solid in the NFL, but because of the lack of production and his instincts and his route anticipation weren't as good, he could fall. And some teams could be like, you know what, let's go with some maybe guys that we think are safer, like, Christian Gonzalez and Joey Porter Jr., Cam Smith from South Carolina. So I think if he's someone that falls and the Ravens can get him, then you have a potential top 5 talent that you can mold into someone that, joins your secondary and can replace, a couple guys that you have set to hit free agency. So I think if he's available and Baltimore picks him, that means they think he has a really high ceiling, and I would love that pick.
I like that. I like Keely Ringo as a player a lot. That's a good call. All right, at Kyle F. Stackpole on Twitter is how you follow him. What can be plugged that you guys have coming up at CBS Sports?
Well, I mean, it's like the thing that we do best. We got mock drafts coming. We've had 3 a week since the beginning of the college football season. We're going to have really 5 a week starting to go forward. But just finished up the Senior Bowl, which was good, and just getting ready for the Combine. So just check out cbssports.com/NFL draft. We got prospect rankings, mock drafts. We actually have a new podcast out, which is called With the First Pick. It's actually with Vikings former general manager Rick Spielman.
Oh, we love Rick.
Talking every week, and they have a great segment on there called Rick's Picks, where he just goes through the best guys that he's drafted throughout his years. So Justin Jefferson, Stephon Diggs, and those are great stories as well. So yeah, it's a draft podcast all year round, but obviously right now it's going to be prevalent, and having that former GM really gives an added credibility and added amount of insight kind of behind what actually goes on in NFL GM offices. So yeah, With the First Pick, you can get it wherever you get your podcast. And looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with the draft and the Ravens and Lamar. And it should be a wild ride these next 2 weeks.
Of course, Stephon Diggs, he a Terp, much like Kyle Stackpole. Hey, buddy. Again, always really happy for you, your success, man. Let's do this again here in a couple weeks, all right? Appreciate you hopping on this morning.
For sure. Thanks, Glenn.
It's Kyle Stackpole, CBSSports.com, with us here on GCR. Hey, we had to postpone last night's show that we had plugged that Stan the Fan and Ross Grimsley were going to catch up with Eve Rosenbaum, but Stan just had a couple personal things he had to take care of, so that had to be postponed. He's planning on getting back to shows very quickly later this week, but if you were, sort of scouring the day looking for it and couldn't find it, don't panic. It's going to be up. They're gonna make it up. They're going to do the show. It's just unfortunately had to be postponed last night. That's all. All right, are we Patrick now, or can we take a break now, or what's that? Break. Come back in. Patrick Stevens, Maryland, Michigan State tonight. We'll learn more about that next. Glenn Clark Radio. The Baltimore County Police Department is hiring. Entry-level officers start at over $60,000 and over $64,000 for lateral officers, with $10,000 signing bonuses available. Plus, cadets start at over $32,000. Great benefits are available, like medical, dental, and vision insurance, tuition reimbursement, 15 sick days per calendar year with no limit, career advancement to more than 20 specialized units, and more, with further incentives for military service members and veterans. A passion for service, a career for life with the Baltimore County Police Department. Find out more at joinbaltimorecountypd.com or call 410-887-5542. Must be a United States citizen, have a valid driver's license, and a high school diploma or GED equivalent.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now, and it's our annual Best Of issue. On the cover, we recognize Orioles catcher Adley Rutschman as our 2022 Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, and he sits down with us to discuss how his arrival in Baltimore was simultaneous with the Birds' turnaround. Also inside, we recognize the top people, performances, and moments of the year throughout the local sports scene. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
There's something for everyone this February at Laurel Park. Come watch live horse racing every Friday through Sunday and join us on Saturday, February 18th for the Winter Stakes Spectacular featuring 6 stakes races and $900,000 in purses, including the General George and Barbara Fritchie Stakes. The fun doesn't stop there. Stick around for our Winter Mardi Gras celebration with live music, delicious food and drinks, and a carnival atmosphere. Plus, don't miss out on President's Day holiday racing on Monday, February 20th. Visit laurelpark.com for more info. That's laurelpark.com for more. See you at the track.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn, over 4100 North Point Boulevard.
Check out PressBoxOnline.com every day to find daily winners and betting advice from Jeremy Kahn. And if you want some advice about life decisions that you probably shouldn't make, here's Glenn Clark.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. It is a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. On Tuesdays, we catch up with our college sports guru. You read him in the Washington Post, USA Lacrosse Magazine. He is, of course, our friend, Mr. Patrick Stevens at Discourse, D1S Course on Twitter is how you follow him. And he's back with us now here on GCR. Patrick, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm well, Glenn. How are you doing today?
I'm all right. Let me pose it to you this way. Maryland's won 5 of their last 6. Is something happening here? Is a tide of some sort turning? Or is the story more they've taken advantage of a good stretch in their schedule where most of the games were at home and, you know, beating Minnesota on the road isn't really much of an accomplishment at this point considering they've won all of one conference game this season?
I think it's probably somewhere in the middle there. It's certainly from the looks of things, that first of all, that's the sort of game that a lesser team might have looked at and said, it's a night off, and then found a way to lose, or at least found a way to find themselves in a much more harrowing situation than they needed to find themselves in. So I'm impressed by the fact that they went to Minnesota and just clubbed the Gophers the way that they did. Am I willing to sit here and say that this is suddenly like a Final Four team? No.
Right.
I think that, we can keep going into this. I wrote a bit about, who's the second best team in the Big Ten? Wrote about that for last weekend. Who really is the second best team in the Big Ten?
I guess it's Rutgers, but, it's not Rutgers by a lot.
That's who I think it is, too. I think it's probably Rutgers and probably Illinois after that. But, the difference between 2 and 9 or 10 in the Big Ten really isn't that substantial. So yes, Maryland has played 2 of its last 3 games against Nebraska, which was extremely shorthanded, and Minnesota, which is really bad. They played a shorthanded Wisconsin team, and you can even start going back, and they caught Ohio State without Zed Key, and also as they were starting their fade. They've been opportunistic. There's no doubt about it. That said, I think that if you had asked anybody
around that program, I think you'd have asked just about any Maryland fan back on November 1st, which you've taken 16-7 and 7-5 in the league at this point,
right.
You would have signed up for it in a heartbeat. So are we willing to say that this Maryland team is better than we probably thought it was going into the season? Sure, I think that's fair. Would I get my hopes up for some sort of multi-weekend stay in March? No, but it's certainly a much greater possibility today than it seemed like 3 months ago.
And Patrick, I would even go not even all the way back to November 1st. Let's go back to January 1st when they got their brains beaten at Michigan. I thought the season really unravel is the wrong word. I didn't think they were going to lose every game, but I thought reality was going to set in. On January 2nd, I would have woken up that morning and said, yeah, this probably is not going to end up being an NCAA tournament team.
Probably not. And I think, too, they had 2 victories in January before this run, that Ohio State game and that Michigan game.
Yep.
That are kind of like what I like to call trapdoor games. You don't win that and the bottom could fall out very, very quickly. Like you lose that Ohio State game and you're staring at going to Iowa and you've still got Purdue on the horizon, not good. You lose to Michigan, you've now lost back-to-back games, and you've got Purdue coming up next, not good. And instead, they won both of those games, and they've held serve at home except for that UCLA game back in December. And that's certainly part of it. I mean, let's see what they do tonight against Michigan State. I mean, I think at the very least, and we've talked about this even during some of the tougher times in January, the schedule certainly turns in their favor in the second half of league play.
Yep.
It's already done that, And so the figuring out a way to get them, another 4 victories the rest of the way, which is what I think they could. If they get that, I think it will be a very comfortable selection Sunday. You're sitting there staring at Nebraska on the road, maybe. Minnesota at home is almost a layup, you would think, at this point. And then toss-up games at home against Penn State and Northwestern. That's 4, and that's your path, and everything else is kind of a bonus. And there's certainly some bonus opportunities out there for them, especially if they play well at home against a team like a Purdue who happens to come to town next week.
Yep. What do we need to know? This, of course, the only time Maryland will see Michigan State in the regular season. Historically, you'd see a trip to Michigan State and, maybe the second end of back-to-back road games, and you kind of look at this and say, yeah, I don't like your chances. But, this is not an overwhelming Michigan State team, obviously.
It is not an overwhelming Michigan State team, but it's kind of in a little bit of a spot here where the schedule turns in its favor, right? So it gets this home game. It just lost to Purdue and Rutgers back-to-back. So it's fallen to 500 in the league. It's 14-9, highly underwhelming. And then you get at Ohio State, Minnesota, at Michigan, home against Indiana, and there's a Nebraska and Ohio State waiting the last week of the season. I mean, this is Michigan State's chance to start a little run and to be able to get itself back to where it thinks it ought to be. I don't think it is a classic, awesome Izzo team that we've come to know over the years. And frankly, we haven't seen one of those really since 2019. Even that team in 2020 that shared the conference title with Maryland was not as good of a typical Michigan State team, right? The last couple of years have been kind of underwhelming. 15-13, 23-13, make the tournament, don't stick around too long. I think this is a stretch now for the Spartans. Can they sort of differentiate themselves and maybe be a bit better than that as they head into March? And I think this is an important game for them.
Patrick Stevens with us here on GCR. Let's head to the local scene. What's happened with UMBC these last couple of weeks?
That's a good question. I think one thing that definitely stands out is that you stare down that main score, the 2 main scores that they've had. They were down big the first time around against Maine, and then came back and were able to pull out an 8-point victory. They had been they'd been down in that game by 11 at halftime. This time they just didn't have a comeback in them and wound up losing by 35 up there. So you look at what they've done over the course of league play, and the thing that stands out is that they just simply they haven't been able to score enough to make up for a limited defense, and that's really the bottom line. Giving up 81 to UMass Lowell, 84 the other night. Vermont has been able to carve them up both times that they played. At the same time, the main game is a bit of an outlier. You look at the other margins. Lost by 6 at Lowell, lost by 4 at NJIT, who comes to town tomorrow, and lost by 6 at Vermont. That's not awful. So I think there's a chance that UMBC can turn it, but it does have to happen pretty quickly. you look here, they get 2 home games this week, NJIT and Bryant. They lost NJIT the first time, beat Bryant the first time around. They're in the middle of that pack right now. They at this point, the goal for the Retrievers needs to be get yourself at least 1 home game in the conference tournament, because right now you're about a game and a half out of second place. So there's a chance that you could get there, but the key at the moment is just get back on track, get a couple victories, and at least put yourself in a position to be playing at home in the first game of that conference tournament.
Towson had their win streak snapped. A tough game, obviously, up at Hofstra. What is their reality now for this sort of closing 6-7 game stretch here at the end of the season?
Well, the one thing we know now is that Jason Gibson isn't coming back this season, and so the looming issue there of well, what happens when Gibson gets back? It'll be better when Gibson gets back, et cetera. Well, that's just not going to happen. So we're going to have the Cam Holden show kind of orchestrating things as a point forward. You're still going to have Nigel Russell handling the ball a bit, Ryan Conway, all those guys. I think as we're sitting here, it's kind of a theme now. The schedule turning in teams' favor. I think the next couple of weeks really look good for Towson to be able to get on a roll again before they head down into the Carolinas the final weekend of the regular season. Hampton has struggled. Drexel has been really up and down. I mean, what a weird team the Dragons have been this season, and last weekend kind of encapsulated it, beating Charleston at home and then losing at Monmouth, and then William and Mary on the road, Delaware and North Carolina A&T at home. That's a possibility to get on a bit of a run before they have to play Charleston and Wilmington. If you're Towson, as we've talked about a fair bit, the whole point at this stage is make sure you have the double bye, get a top 4 seed, and take your chances from there. It was always going to come down to 3 days in March anyway, and it's the priority is to make sure that it doesn't come down to 4 days in March.
Yeah, 100%. And then look, again, they've played teams well. There's no reason to think that one loss at Hofstra, which we all know is a good team.
That is, Hofstra would be the number 1 seed in the league tournament, right?
Right.
And Towson handled them splendidly at home back on January 16th. So I think there was probably a little bit of a payback element there for the Pride, who had been made to look very, very bad after a hot start in that MLK game. And, Aaron Estrada was really, really limited the first time around. He had 27 this time around. So that you're not going to be able to hold a guy like that in check very often. And once is probably, you probably hit your quota if you're Towson in terms of containing him.
I guess the other thing on the local front is we keep saying it, that when the MEAC gets back underway this weekend, UMES continues to kind of look like the team to beat in that league.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm telling you what, I'm looking forward to catching them on a MEAC Monday down at Howard on Monday.
Yeah.
MEAC Monday on Monday. Who knew, right?
It's crazy. It's crazy to do that sometime.
They have won 7 in a row, and they have won 11 out of 12, which is something I'm not sure anybody who has followed college hoops in this area has ever really pondered the possibility of it ever happening. I think the win streak is their longest since 1974, which is incredible just by itself. And this weekend, this was kind of the tough spot on their schedule the first time through the league. They lost to Norfolk State down in Norfolk. They get Norfolk at home on Saturday, and then Howard's the game that kind of jump-started the winning streak that they're on. Now, they've won a few close games in there. They had a tight one against Dell State, a relatively tight one against South Carolina State, but they have played really well of late, beating the 2 Baltimore schools, and those 2 teams wait toward the end of the second run through the league as well. But, Eastern Shore right now tied with Howard heading into the second half of league play, and, you look at those veteran guys that they've had for a while, Kevon Voiles and Deshaun Phillip, among others. Nathaniel Pollard is an undersized 5. There are guys that know their roles. They know how to play. They take care of the ball for the most part. Well, actually, they force a lot of turnovers, I should say. They've struggled a little bit with taking care of the ball. My bad. But they play great defense. And so, it's funny, looking at their KenPom page, I would have never guessed to see a tab that says nation's 7th longest active win streak on Eastern Shore's page. But there it is, 7 in a row. and a really nice job that Jason Crafton has done down there in Princess Anne.
Pretty remarkable. All right, before we play our game, anything in particular from the first weekend of college lacrosse? Obviously, Maryland still very good. I read Terry Foy wrote about some like complaints with face-off violations in the Navy Mount St. Mary's game, but just anything that stood out from you from the first kind of mini weekend of college lacrosse?
Yeah, I was at the second Navy game, so there was certainly a lot of relief that they actually let the guys face off rather than calling a whistle every other time, it seemed like. So I think that's the sort of thing that'll get ironed out because nobody wants just to see a bunch of face-off violations.
Yeah.
And so there will probably be some guidance that comes down and says, don't let that happen again. I think the national result that's interesting is right in our backyard. It was Hopkins going down to Jacksonville and picking up a 12-7 victory over the Dolphins. Tim Marcio made his first start since 2021 in the cage. Alex Mazzone, the Georgetown transfer, had an instant impact. They moved him down to close defense because of some injuries, had a goal and a couple caused turnovers. That's an encouraging result for Hopkins given the way that its defense got picked apart at times the last couple of years. So to be able to keep Jacksonville to 7, a good sign for them, but obviously plenty more on the horizon for the Blue Jays here coming up in the next few weeks. Georgetown, Carolina, and Loyola all in an 8-day span starting Saturday. We'll learn a bit more about Peter Milliman's team here soon.
No doubt about that. All right, let's get into our game. Can Patrick Stevens name the MLB teams? By the way, this actually came up at bar trivia last night where a Patrick Stevens game was tossed in as a question. Could you name the 4 teams for Hall of Famer Scott Rowland? Straight shoot. That was a question at trivia last night. They apparently have been listening. 2 players that I have for you today, both position players. We begin 4 teams. For Mitch Moreland is the first name that I have for you, a one-time All-Star, a Gold Glove winner, and a World Series champion.
Well, he's definitely a Texas Ranger and a Boston Red Sox,
Most
right?
certainly, yes.
And the other 2 spots, I
will join you in admitting that I had forgotten. I remembered one of these. I did not remember the last stop.
Do I ever so vaguely remember him as a Blue Jay?
Not as a Blue Jay, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll just do a little dart throw here and say the Cardinals.
All right, no. So it was the Padres, and I remember the Padres acquiring him when they were kind of acquiring everyone there for a bit as they were trying to get back. He also played the final year of his career with the Athletics was the other one.
Okay.
So I'll give you one. We'll clean it up a little bit. Admittedly, now I say we'll clean it up. I couldn't figure out why we hadn't used this player before. I mean, this is a Hall of Fame caliber player that we had never put on the list. I then found out it was because he had to play for 2 teams last year in order to qualify for our list. So I say it's easier because the caliber of player, but it does require to remember which teams he played for last season. 5 teams for an 8-time All-Star, a 5-time Silver Slugger Award winner, a 2-time Gold Glove Award winner, and once the MVP of the World Baseball Classic. I did not know that. I have no idea if he'll end up getting into the Hall of Fame because of other issues, but Robinson Cano is the player that we're discussing.
Robinson Cano, yes. So he was obviously a New York Yankee.
Yep.
A Seattle Mariner.
Yes, of course.
A New York Met.
Absolutely. Then do you remember the 2 teams?
I believe the 2 teams that he split the tail into last year were San Diego and Atlanta.
Very nicely done. I remembered Atlanta. Ironically, I completely forgot that the Padres had tried, and it was a miserable failure when the Padres tried to pick up Robinson Cano last year. It was dreadful. Well done, sir. All right, what's on the schedule for you this week?
UMBC tomorrow. I'll catch Maryland on Monday, and then UMES and Howard next Monday. Maryland and Penn State Saturday. MEAC Monday, and then Hopkins and Carolina lacrosse next Tuesday to catch both of those teams early on in the year.
Excellent. At Discourse, D1S Course on Twitter is how you follow them. Of course, the Washington Post as well as USA Lacrosse Magazine. Always appreciate you, my friend. Thanks for taking a couple of minutes for us this morning. We'll talk to you next week.
Awesome, Glenn. Take care.
It's Patrick Stevens with us as he is every Tuesday here on GCR. You have something?
I had no idea Robinson Cano was a Brave.
Yes,
last year.
So yes,
and I remember the Padres.
Well, when I was going over
the
list of names that qualify, again, our rules are you had to play 5 years past 1980 in order just time-wise. Like Patrick, Patrick's is similar to my age. Like you can't remember forever.
He should know.
What? He needs to know every player for all time.
This is the title. This is what he claims to.
Jesus Christ. So you had to play 5 years past 1980. You had to make at least one All-Star game, and you had to play for at least 4 teams. So when I saw Robinson Cano's name pop up on my list, I'm like,
why haven't you used him? Or
the hell? Like I'm scratching for players of relevance. Robinson Cano is a Hall of Fame caliber player. Of course, I don't know if he's going to get into the Hall of Fame or not because of steroids, but he's a Hall of Fame caliber player. Why in the hell would I have not used Robinson Cano before? And so I looked it up, and I was like, oh, right, because he had to play for 2 teams last year in order to get – he had been sitting at 3 teams until the midway point of last season. That's the reason why I hadn't used Robinson Cano before. For what it's worth, a year ago in 12 games with the Padres, he recorded 3 hits in 33 at-bats. And then in 9 games with the Braves, 4 hits in 26 at-bats. It was rough for Robbie Cano. Sorry, I think Griffin turned your microphone off, Prince Charles. I apologize. He hates you is what it comes down to. And you know what? I think you guys should have a fight. I think that you guys should duke it out. Go ahead, Charles. Yes.
Sounds like collecting checks.
Well, yes, it's exactly.
Yeah.
But I get it. Both of those teams are like, who knows, right? This is Robinson Cano that we're talking about. Maybe you take a flyer, you end up getting a lottery ticket out of it somehow. The answer was no, and that will be where Robinson Cano's career will come to an end. After 2 teams go ahead and try it, and it doesn't work out for them, it almost becomes the Joe Bluth meme that it's never worked for anyone before, but it might work for us. It becomes that at some point. So I don't think they're going to end up doing it. All right, into the second hour of today's show. It is a reminder that there's only about a week left for you to pick up this print issue of Press Box. It is the best of 2022 issue. Our Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, Adley Rutschman, is on the cover. It's available for free at your neighborhood Royal Farms and at the hundreds of locations around town where you find Press Box. Of course, on Saturday night, everybody got to watch ESPN's 30 for 30, the Bullies of Baltimore. And as I tried telling you after I had gotten the opportunity to view it, to me, what made me particularly emotional about it is it came off like a love letter to Tony Siragusa. And we had Jason Weber and Ken Rogers, the filmmakers, on the show last week. They were like, yeah, we felt a lot of that too. I mean, it was really, he was the star of the show. There's no question about it. And, of course, everybody in our city has our own stories about Tony and how much we love him. And so getting to see him sort of, on the big screen, if you will, with the Bullies for Baltimore was beautiful. And I wanted to take a couple minutes because Tony's family is really trying to bring attention and raise funds for an initiative that Tony had started before he passed away called Goose Flights in a partnership with Titan Aviation, his company. And it's a wonderful thing. And I wanted to give an opportunity for Tony's daughter, Sammi, to join us this morning and tell us more about that and getting to watch the 30 for 30 on Sunday night. So with us this morning here on GCR, she is Sammi Siragusa. Sammi, it's Glenn Clark in Baltimore. It's so wonderful to meet you. I thank you so much for taking a couple of minutes for us.
Hi, Glenn. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Had you had an opportunity to watch before Sunday night, Sammi, or did you sit down with everybody else Sunday night and watch for the first time?
You know what? We sat down Sunday night and we were surprised from everything. We had no idea what to expect, what it was going to be like. And obviously it was an incredible showcase of just the light my dad was in this world to, his team and many people. So
that was what I think. It was, to me, I get emotional thinking about it. And I knew your dad a little bit. I didn't know him as well as some people in town, but we had quite a few run-ins over the year. He made fun of me plenty of times over the years. Like, the love, the joy that your dad brought me, it's overwhelming. What I felt on Sunday night truly was, with all due respect, like Ray Lewis is a star and Jamal Lewis was a star, but that movie was your dad's. I mean, it was the story of the 2000 Ravens. To me, ended up really being about his personality and the aura that he brought to that team. For you being as young as you are, and certainly as young as you were at the time, did it end up serving a little bit as like an educational kind of thing? Where like, wow, there's a lot of stuff that maybe you didn't even know about your dad from that point.
You know what? My dad was exactly who you saw him to be on that TV in every aspect of his life. He was just any room that he would walk into, he would light up. He just led with kindness and fun and, great work ethic. And, everything that you saw is exactly how I've known him too for the 26 years of my life. So
did you have an idea of how much he meant to this city? Like, did you, I say that, and like when we sat down, after he unfortunately passed, we were comparing him to Art Don. Like what he did in going into town and doing events and hugging people and grabbing them by the neck and making them feel welcome, did as much for this franchise as I think any single player did on the field ever. Were you aware of how much he meant to the city of Baltimore as a person beyond just as a football player?
You know what? Over all of the years, just as we would go back to Baltimore and visit, I would see when we would walk into, his favorite crab place, or we'd walk into a regular restaurant or wherever it may be, I could see the love that would pour out from all of these random people. And, and that's so special. And, ever since his passing, I've been hearing these incredible, amazing stories about him that, he had never shared. But my dad, he just, like you were saying, with grabbing people's necks and just giving people hugs and doing all those things, he was so genuine in all of that he did. And so, the love, I could see it throughout all of the years. And even after, I'll tell you, I was at the live showcase of the 30 for 30.
Yeah.
And after it was all done and all the players were able to go up and leave and all, my dad was one of the few who stayed behind and started signing autographs over the stage. I have videos of him, and everyone was swarming to him. Everyone wanted all autographs from everybody, but there were a few players who went in the back. My dad stayed out there, and I admired him for that. And, it made me understand a small piece and reason of why he was so valued and loved, because, with his success and everything that he did in his life, he wanted to bring everyone up with him. It was never just fully for him.
You're gonna make me emotional, Sammy. Like, you're gonna make me. I can't tell you how much I love your dad. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed every moment that I was able to be around him, and everything that he meant to this city. And it's so beautiful to hear you talk about it. I guess the important question is, did you ever find yourself? You're probably so used to the humor that you to roll your eyes sometimes. But like when he's telling the story about needing an enema, do you have to like roll your eyes, or like how do you handle that part of it?
For many years of my life, I was like, Dad, oh my gosh, you're embarrassing me. Can you stop? But over the years, I've learned to just appreciate it and accept it and love it. And he's just so funny. You have to just let him be. He wanted to go through life laughing. That was his favorite thing to do. And as you could see from that documentary, that's exactly what he did in all areas of his life.
What did it mean to you to be able to share your dad? I imagine that like at times in life it's tough where you just sort of want him to be your dad, right? Like not everybody's dad, right? But
right.
He's so beloved to be able to know that your father brought so much joy to so many people. Can you put that into words?
Yeah, I mean, yes, you have to share. You have to share, and you have to learn how to accept that. And I mean, as I was growing up, there were definitely challenges because, you sit at a dinner table and you just want to be with your family. And then all of a sudden you have all these people coming up to the table wanting autographs. And, my dad did not like to say no ever.
Yeah.
But you know what? He was really good at prioritizing his family. And what he would do, although he didn't want to say no, he would be like, I'm having dinner with my family right now, but once we're done with dinner, then I'll go and, sign whatever you want, take as many pictures as you want. And, so in that aspect, he really had a handle on things and told us all about, how much he prioritized us and how important we were to him. And so when it came to just him being this public figure, I almost embraced it. And I've just been so proud of him my whole life for all that he's done. And, it always amazed me, and I just have always been proud of him, really. But
it's awesome. It's so cool to hear you talk. I'm telling you, this is tough for me because it really is emotional talking about it.
Yeah.
Can I ask, like, you mentioned you're 26. Do you have any like actual memories of the Super Bowl? Like, do you it's so young. I think about my kids are 8 and 5 right now, and we just took them to Disney World, and I'm like, I have no idea if my 5-year-old will ever remember going to, like, were you too young to have real memories, or was it so like wonderful that you are able to have like some sort of memory of it?
I do have some memories, and of course they're not all fully there, but
sure.
I think one of my most vivid ones is the Super Bowl when they had won. I remember him running across the field, coming right up to the area where all of us and his family was sitting, and he pulled me over the railings, brought me onto the field, and had me, and I think my mom was there next to him too, and he just celebrated that success with us. And that just goes back to him and just how he wanted everyone to come up with him. It was never just fully about him, but that was just a really cool memory, and there are so many photos of him holding me during the Super Bowl, which is just so special too.
That's awesome. That's all. And I was watching that image of him holding you after the Super Bowl, and that was
right.
So beautiful. That was so beautiful.
Right.
Sammi, speaking of beautiful, I know that Goose Flights was something that he had cared about a lot late in his life, and with his aviation company and making this possible. And can you take me through, for people that don't know what Goose Flights is and what you guys are trying to do and why it was so important for you and your family to say, we need to make this reality, even with Dad gone, that we want to make this something that can make a difference in the world?
Right, yes. So a couple months before everything happened with my dad passing, he had been working with the NFL Alumni Baltimore chapter to bring Goose Flights into fruition. And he had started a private aviation company in 2015 with his business partner and Titan Aviation Group. And what essentially his goal was to build it up super big and then have a branch off of it that focused on charitable causes. So what he was talking, with the NFL alumni about was how they can partner together, work together, possibly transport retired NFL players, to doctor's appointments for CTE, so on and so forth. But the vision was bigger than that too. My dad, he just had a passion for helping children. And you wouldn't maybe know it because he never did it to get publicity. He never did it in front of the cameras. But when he was in the prime of his career, he was going to the hospital frequently, and he had this one kid that he would visit over and over and over again. And, he always loved to give back. That's just one story. But basically, he was talking with Kyle Richardson over at the NFL Alumni Baltimore chapter, and they were like, okay, let's get this in the works. Well, before they were able to start it, my dad ended up passing, and so Kyle approached me at my father's services, and he was like, Sammi, I know you're getting bombarded right now, but I have to talk to you. And 6 weeks later, we got on a Zoom call. He told me my dad's vision. He was like, we have something really special here. I'd love for you to just kind of do this. And there were multiple people who had said that too. And so, I've taken over the role of president of Goose Flights, where essentially we transport people with terminal illnesses to, reliable healthcare facilities, hospitals, vacation destinations via jet charter. So, transportation these days is a little wonky.
Yeah.
And, if there's a kid in another state who needs to get to a specialist, but they don't have a way, to get there, well, we're here. Titan Aviation Group, they help us with all of the transportation, and it's just a really beautiful thing that we're doing.
That's wonderful, Sammi. I know that like our friends at Be More Around Town partner with you guys, and I know that Jimmy's did an event this week, but if somebody's listening that was just inspired by, seeing your dad, I don't mean to be trite, but like come back to life on Sunday night, watching this on if somebody was inspired by that and wanted to say, hey, I'd like to throw a couple bucks that way or help out in some sort of capacity, where can we point them?
You can go to gooseflights.org, and everything will be there that you need. If you want to get in touch with me, you can, get in touch with me through there. You can donate on there. You can also get in touch with our people over at the Jet Charter Company, Titan Aviation Group. But essentially, we're just trying to continue to shine my dad's light everywhere and, help as many people as possible. The vision for this is big. And I'll tell you, you'll like this. So his vision for it was so big that one day he wanted to buy his own private jet for the foundation.
This. Oh, this is so cool. This is
that was wrapped in a football, has the Goose Flights logo on it, and has purple snake skin interior inside the jet, so that when you're flying kids or children or people who are sick, that they're reminded to just dream big and think big and just have this fun, warm, welcoming environment and experience when they're flying.
God, that's cool. It is so cool, Sammy. I love that. And it's so perfectly your dad, like
isn't it?
Everything about it is just so wonderful. Again, gooseflights.org is the website for you to go find out more. And there is a yellow donate button there at the top. If you're thinking about it and you got a lot of joy on Sunday night from watching the Bullies of Baltimore, I would really encourage you to click that button and make a donation for Goose Flights and what the Siragusa family is doing. Sammy, I don't know what else there is to say. We love your dad so much, and it was so beautiful getting to see him, the entire country get to see what he meant to us here in Baltimore on Sunday night. And we are so grateful for how your family shared him, frankly, like that you were,
Thank you.
You were willing to say, hey, I get it. Like, other people love my dad besides me, and you want to lift that up. And I can't tell you how much it means. I appreciate you sharing a few minutes with us this morning. I would love to do this again and partner up somehow in the future. Thank you for taking the time.
Yes,
Sammy.
We would love that. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the love, the support, and everything. It means the world.
It's awesome. Sammi Siragusa. I apologize. I am, a little emotional. God damn, man. Tony Siragusa was an American original. They don't make dudes like that every day. And if you watched on Sunday night and you were a young person, I got two young people in the studio with me that don't know the stories, that can't possibly understand what Tony Siragusa meant. Imagine Charles me telling you, or I've talked to Griffin about it a lot. Imagine me telling you that when the Ravens arrived, not everybody in Baltimore was excited about it. Like, there was a lot of awkwardness in this city when the Ravens arrived, that the thing that had happened to us, we were now doing to another city, right? Like the thing where, our team had been stolen from us, and my father, like the team that we loved, was stolen from us in the middle of the night. There was awkwardness about the idea of turning around and stealing another city's team the same way. There was not, there were still people here that said, look, I love the Colts. That's who I grew up rooting for. I can't root against those helmets. Like, when the Colts play, I root for the Colts, and I don't know where my love would be for some new franchise. And Tony Siragusa, as a man, decided to take it upon himself to go out into the community and be like John the Baptist and just say, I'm asking for you to love us. I'm asking for you to get on board. Now, it helped that the Ravens obviously won a Super Bowl. Like, that was going to go a long way into making people, no matter what your emotions were, everybody loves a winner, and the Ravens became a winner pretty quickly in their 5th year. But the role that Tony Siragusa played in this city in establishing the connection between this city and that franchise is unparalleled. There is no one in the history of the franchise that has done more for that than Tony Siragusa did.
No, from my perspective, the way he carried himself, his mannerisms, how he went about his life, it almost seems as if there was a long table of script writers writing his every move.
Wow.
And kind of it all encapsulated into that feel-good movie story arc.
Dude, and all of it, right? Like the reminder that he once, when Phil Simms was killing him about the Rich Gannon hit, he said, I don't know, Phil, my wife's 5'2" and 120 pounds, and I lay on top of her once a week, and she doesn't seem to mind. Like, God. He was just so bloody funny. Like, would dance right up to inappropriate, would dance right up to it, and not past it. Well, like, depending on what your view of inappropriate. Not to where you would ever, cancel him. Like, not something like he would dance right up to that line and would be uproariously funny. The scene of him begging Brian Billick to give him a carry in the Super Bowl because they were up by 27 points. And, I mean, it's just good ass. Like, and he forget about it. I mean, I remembered it after I had been reminded about it. I was like, oh, right. That was a storyline that week, was Tony Siragusa was asking to get a carry in the Super Bowl. But none of the rest of us, unlike, again, if you watch the movie, the Ravens were quite confident that they were going to win the Super Bowl. The rest of us were not nearly as confident about it. We thought they might win. Like, we definitely thought there was a chance they would win. But the reminder was the Giants had just beaten Randy Moss and the Vikings 41-0 in the NFC Championship game. And there was definitely the Giants might be really good. Like, they might be ridiculously good. And you remember, there was no consensus among pundits that the Ravens were even the team to beat in that Super Bowl. It was very 50-50. And yet internally, and you saw them talk about it, like internally, they looked at the film and said, we're going to murder them dudes. Like, they were internally, and it wasn't a story that's like been created 20 years later. I'm telling you, immediately afterwards, you found out just how absurdly confident they were that they were going to win the Super Bowl. And so Tony Siragusa on the radio, like, imagine that now. Imagine right now if, I don't even know, is Mike Burton's the fullback for the Chiefs, right? Imagine Mike Burton publicly saying, I think we're going to win by so much that I'd like to get no,
Jason Kelce.
That's
or something.
No, it's really more who it would be, not Mike Burton, because he is a fullback. I did that. I like Mike Burton actually lives in Baltimore. I don't think a lot of people know that because he's not from here. Mike Burton lives here and is a good dude. It's funny because we're going to do a post for Pressbox this week about all the local connections in the Super Bowl, and Luke was running them by me like, did I forget about anybody? I'm like, I don't know how to define this, but like Mike Burton lives here. It's an A.J. Burnett type of deal where like there's no obvious connection in any way. I couldn't possibly tell you why. Like I'm not friends with Mike Burton in any way. I think we had like a conversation. I know someone who is friends with him. And I was like, why does he live here? And he's like, well, it's something to do with his wife. I'm like, is she from here? I don't know. Like, I have no idea why they live here. No, it would be more like Chris Jones. It would be like Chris Jones saying this week, I think we're going to kick the Eagles' asses by so much that you can give me a carry in the fourth quarter. Could you imagine? I mean, it would be insane. Yeah. Like, we'd murder Chris Jones over something like that. And here's Tony Siragusa publicly campaigning to get the football in the week leading up to the Super Bowl because he was so convinced that the Ravens were going to destroy the Giants in the Super Bowl that, like, yeah, we'll be up by 4 scores, 100%. Give me the ball. And then he goes over to Brian Billick, hey, dude, 4-score game.
The ball.
Like, what the hell's going on? You promised. Brian Billick's like, I guess maybe in a moment where Brian Billick has to admit he didn't think they were going to be up by 4 scores, so he has to admit that he lied. I'm not going to give you the ball. We're not going to do that. And Brian is more like a respect the game type of person where, like, I'm not going to embarrass the Giants by saying we think so little of you that we're lining up our defensive tackle to get a carry.
But what if he had?
Oh, it would have been. God, it would have been perfect. Oh, it would have been just everything.
It was funny to hear Chris Berman's scoregami prediction of 12-11 when I watched the documentary.
I mean, he would do silly shtick like that a lot, right?
12-11.
Like Berman would do a lot of that type of silly shtick during the course. Of course, remember, famously, he picked the 49ers and Bills every year as his Super Bowl teams. Every year at the beginning of the season, he would do a bit, and the bit was he would always pick the 49ers to play the Bills, and he would do that. Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills thing. I liked Chris Berman's shtick. I get that it was like the home run derby. It was way too much. Like I could never do that. Of course, I don't watch the home run derby anymore, so I wouldn't care. But more often than not, I was entertained by it when it wasn't a game. When it was him doing, highlights, I was entertained by Chris Berman's shtick. I always enjoyed it.
It was really good to see to learn, like why, how the Ravens became essentially just such a model organization and why, like, I and, my generation of fans get to be so spoiled.
It's part of what I was trying to talk about last week. Like, I do think this was great. For when Tony passed away, I could not explain to someone who didn't live it what the Ravens were when they arrived and how they became. Like, again, people your age think of the Ravens among the top franchises in football, right? And like we'll see how the Lamar Jackson situation plays out, but for the most part, they're one of the better organizations in football. They're consistently in the mix. They're not, they've obviously had missteps, of course. The way they handled the Ray Rice thing was horrendous, and like it's not like they've never had problems, but for the most part, they do things the right way. And for you to understand, it wasn't like you weren't born with that. Like that had to come from somewhere. This was the foundation, and Tony was such a significant part of laying that foundation. Oh, man. That was awesome. Really, really neat that we were able to do that and connect with Sammi Siragusa. Please go support Goose Flights. Again, gooseflights.org. It's a wonderful initiative that they have put together, and we will try to do some things to partner up with them here moving forward. All right. Today's show also brought to you by PressBoxOnline.com/offers. Again, Eagles or Chiefs. If you think that one of those teams is going to be up by 4 scores and one of their defensive tackles can get a carry in the Super Bowl, then place your Super Bowl bets with your favorite team and pick from hundreds of fun prop bets. Thousands of dollars in special sign-up offers with the top sports books are available at PressBoxOnline.com/offers. Go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers right now and join the fun with great offers from FanDuel, BetMGM, Barstool, and more. When we come back in, we are going to, I say meet. I've known Anthony Adams for a long time. But it'll be the first time we chat with him as the head coach, as the UMBC soccer program has moved on, and they've gone with Pete Caringi's top lieutenant as their head coach moving forward. Anthony Adams joins us next. This is Glenn Clark Radio.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now, and it's our annual Best Of issue. On the cover, we recognize Orioles catcher Adley Rutschman as our 2022 Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, and he sits down with us to discuss how his arrival in Baltimore was simultaneous with the Birds' turnaround. Also inside, we recognize the top people, performances, and moments of the year throughout the local sports scene. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
The Baltimore County Police Department is hiring. Entry-level officers start at over $60,000 and over $64,000 for lateral officers, with $10,000 signing bonuses available. Plus, cadets start at over $32,000. Great benefits are available like medical, dental, and vision insurance, tuition reimbursement, 15 sick days per calendar year with no limit, career advancement to more than 20 specialized units, and more, with further incentives for military service members and veterans. A passion for service, a career for life with the Baltimore County Police Department. Find out more at joinbaltimorecountypd.com or call 410-887-5542. Must be a United States citizen, have a valid driver's license, and a high school diploma or GED equivalent.
If you miss anything on the show, don't forget that you can watch full episodes at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline, and you can download podcasts on Apple, iTunes, Amazon, and Grindr. Wait, did I say Grindr? I don't think that you would find it on Grindr. Not that I know it's on Grindr or anything, I swear. On second thought, you know what? I don't care what you think. Here's Glenn.
All right, back in here on GCR. Thanks again to Sammi Siragusa. That was incredible. Look forward. If you missed it, you'll be wanting to hear that one a little bit later on today in the greatest hits for sure. We continue on a Tuesday edition of the program. When we do one of these, I normally say we're meeting somebody. That wouldn't be the case here, as we've known Anthony Adams for a long time. But it's going to be the first time we have a conversation with him as now the head coach of the UMBC soccer program after 26 years on Pete Caringi's staff. We welcome in the new head coach at UMBC. He is Coach Anthony Adams. Coach, it's Glenn. It's great to chat with you. Thank you for taking the time, and congratulations on becoming the head coach at UMBC, sir.
No, I really appreciate it, and also thanks for having me on.
Hey, man.
It's been a wild few days, but it's been awesome.
Can you just, when I say the name Pete Caringi, what do you think?
Well, he's a friend. I mean, I probably have a different perspective than most. He's become a really good friend. He's a mentor. He was my coach, but I think for me, he is Baltimore soccer for me. People say that joking around, but you'll be hard pressed to find anyone who has more pride in Baltimore soccer, all the way from youth all the way up, than he does. And so for me, and I said it the other day in the press conference, I think he's one of the best coaches our country's ever produced. So I'm just really lucky to have been around him this long.
I wouldn't disagree with anything that you just said. Can you put into words how prepared you feel like you are for this moment because of everything that you've been able to learn being around him for so long?
Well, I think the one thing that stands out is, when I think I was 23. I was 22 turning 23 when I started working for him in 1997. I was 2 years removed from playing. And I think during the first year, and I'm still learning and figuring things out, he was putting me in charge of things right from the beginning. He made me the recruiting coordinator, like my first week on the job. I think within a few months, he put me on a plane to England and said, come back with 2 players. And fortunately, we hit 2 home runs with 2 guys that ended up, being all conference, and one's in our Hall of Fame. So that kind of his belief in me to do that at such a young age.
Good start.
Really
good start. Starting to wonder if you come with the wrong 2 guys, maybe we wouldn't be having this conversation.
We definitely wouldn't. We definitely would not be having this conversation.
What UMBC soccer became over the years, and obviously, of course, highlighted by your guys' run to the Final Four, but it's so much more than that, right? It's what it means on the campus, and the massive crowds that you guys have had for games, and to your point, the number of players that you've produced that have gone on, to play as high as like MLS and overseas. How much did you notice, or when maybe did you notice? What do you think made UMBC soccer what it's become, and how do you continue that now as you take over at the helm of the program?
Obviously, there was success in the 70s. And there was a team that went to the NCAA tournament. And then obviously it was competitive through the 80s. But when he got there in the 90s, early 90s, and I remember him convincing, it was 4 guys from Calvert Hall, which at the time back then, and that's my alma mater. So they won this year, which is awesome. But we used to win every 3 out of 4, every 4 out of 5. So to have 4 Calvert Hall guys come to UMBC back then was unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, and we wanted to play for him. I didn't know anything about the school. There wasn't the internet. So we kind of, all believed in him and wanted to play for him. And he had a lot of early success. I mean, I think his first 3 teams was like 15 wins, 12 wins, and then 15 wins again. So all of a sudden it was on the map. I would say in 99, the undefeated run all the way to the NCAA tournament was huge, because I think we were ranked as high as 11th that year. So I think that really put us on the map nationally, I would say. And then after that, clearly from, 2010 to 2014, the run there. And it's just raised the whole standard of everything. I think getting, Bermuda Grass in 2006, getting lights in 2011 just made it a really cool place for the community to come and watch soccer. And we've always had, 70 to 80% of our roster has been local guys. So, that draws the local clubs and the local interest. And we've gotten, some of the better ones. So I think put that all together, I I think that's why we've had that success. To sustain it, for me, like the blueprint's there, so I think the biggest thing now is college soccer's changed. I mean, you've seen it with the transfer portal in all sports. These older guys, grad students, it's just different now. When you're seeing teams with, like Syracuse won the national championship with 16 transfers.
Right.
It's just a different animal than it was years ago, and we just have to change with the times, but not lose our DNA.
How do you, it's I think that's particularly unique for you guys, right? Because you're the place that I'm sure a lot of other schools are looking at and saying, this is UMBC soccer. They got a bunch of kids there. They're good, but like maybe we could pry them away to come here and help us because, we've got a few more amenities that maybe we can offer. How do you handle that as you're recruiting, as you want kids, but you want kids that'll be there for 4 years? Like, how do you handle sort of almost having to re-recruit your kids now as the years go on?
I mean, quite simply, I think culture wins, in all aspects. And I think if you have a good culture and you give kids a reason to stay, if they really feel a true connection to you and your program and the university, they're not going to go anywhere. I mean, you're always going to have your one-offs here and there, but you're not going to see a mass exodus if there's a really good culture. And that's in any sport, any program. So even with all these rule changes and different things and some of these rules make it really easy for kids to leave. I think one of the things, even like I said, this year we were most proud of is we didn't have one undergraduate player hit the portal, and it's crazy to say, but, I look up, there's teams that went deep in the NCAA tournament and they have 7-8 guys on the portal.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy, but that's what we live in. But I think it's all about culture.
I think there's no doubt. And I think it speaks to what you guys have built over the years that you aren't having kids constantly picked off by other programs. That they want to be here and continue this success. Anthony Adams, just another couple of minutes with him here on GCR, new head coach of the soccer program at UMBC. Coach, what's the thing that you do as a coach that you most, like, the first time you did it, you're like, oh, God, it's just carbon copy. Like, I'm literally just doing it because I saw Pete do it once. Like, what's the thing on a day-to-day basis that you notice yourself doing that was maybe most influenced by your longtime mentor?
Wow. There's so many things. I think, I was pretty introverted as a kid.
Really?
I was very, very introverted. I wouldn't say a whole lot. I think when I played, I definitely played with emotion. So that was kind of like my time to be more extroverted. But I was pretty introverted as a kid, and I think Pete's the complete opposite of an introvert. So I think, just having conversations with him and being able to relate, to different kinds of people. When Pete walks into the building at UMBC, everybody knows it. You know what I mean? He says hi to everybody. He's respectful to everybody. He wants to know the other assistant coaches, ask them how they're doing. And I've definitely picked that up early on. I don't just come in and walk to my office and shut the door. I think just being, helping create that community at UMBC is something, that I really valued and he really valued. And I picked that up early on.
I think it's a pretty good thing to pick up. Like, I think that's not a bad one to pick up. What could you say I know will be different? Obviously, like, you want to respect the culture. You want to continue doing things the same way, but, you're your own person. What's something that maybe you know immediately, this might be a little bit different moving forward now?
It's hard to say any one thing. I think that the main thing is, and it's just going to be, my voice will be the first voice, and I think, as I told the players, we're not going to reinvent the wheel. I mean, the culture's here, the tradition is here. But to sit here and say I'm not going to put my own stamp on it, would be crazy. So I think, I don't know if there's any one thing. I mean, I think if I look back at this particular season, we scored a ton of goals, second most since I've been there. But we only had 2 shutouts. And I think, at the end, that's why we didn't win as many at the end, even though we had a double-digit win season. Our goals were obviously higher. So, my message to the team is, we're going to have to be more balanced for sure. Doesn't mean we're not going to, we all love scoring goals. We're going to have to be more balanced if we want to meet our goals.
And then what does it mean to you to be able to have Pete III be on your staff to sort of continue the tradition of the Karinjis at UMBC?
Yeah, I mean, like I told people, there'll still be an Adams and Karinji on staff next year. So that's not going to change. No, Pete, and I was joking with him the other day, is now I said, can we start calling you Pete now, or are you still going to be Petey? You know what I mean? We got to figure that out.
You are the Pete Caringi at UMBC now. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Pete the third did, add the junior to Big Pete's name. He was just Pete Caringi until his son started scoring lots of goals, and all of a sudden he had to add the JR. We have a good relationship, and he's been great through the whole thing because it's not easy. I mean, you're working with your dad, and then it's a family thing and a program thing at the same time. So it's been good. I think it brings a lot of continuity as well with the players, comfortability, knowing that the whole staff's not turning over or anything like that. So
I think it's awesome. I think it's incredible. I mean, it's such a logical thing to do to make this move. I'm so happy for you, Coach. You got to get that Twitter bio updated pretty soon, man. We got to work on that.
I think I did that. I did that late last night or this morning.
Okay. Taken care of.
I think I did. I did remove the.
You're right. I see it now. UMBC men's soccer head coach. Coach, congratulations. We can't wait to come out and see you guys. Happy for you. Happy for the program that there's such continuity in place. It's not easy for everybody to replace a legend, but to have such a great option right there waiting, second in line, top lieutenant, is an awesome thing. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning. We'll be talking as we get closer to the season again. Appreciate you doing this.
Thanks, Glenn. Appreciate you having me on, and appreciate your continued support and the fact that you pay attention to soccer. It means a lot.
Absolutely, Coach. We will. That's Coach Anthony Adams at A17Adams on Twitter is how you follow him. He is, of course, the new head coach at UMBC, and look forward to seeing what he can bring to the program. Obviously, you guys know I'm a little bit partial towards Loyola because I work there, but we root for everybody. We want to see everybody have success. It's good for everyone in the community to and look, if you've never been out to a big UMBC soccer game, the atmosphere is unbelievable. It is incredible. Of course, they've hosted Maryland a few times over the years and have literally had to turn people away that were trying to get into the game because they've created such mob scenes over at the Retriever Soccer Park. It's an awesome atmosphere. I had the pleasure once of calling their America East Championship game back in 2014 when they made the run. Probably was when they made the run to the Final Four. I called the America East Championship game that year, and it was as electric as anything that I've ever done in covering sports in this area. So excited for Anthony Adams. He's a hell of a coach and a good guy, and helps them out a lot as they move on from a legend in Pete Caringi. I was reminded this weekend, Prince Charles, that you left the Bellator fight out of Fighting Words last week. Yeah, what do you have to say for yourself on such a failure?
Yeah. Okay. So I think what happened was we had talked about WrestleMania,
and so you just really wanted to include the Royal Rumble.
I think you had in your head counted that as my first.
You just wanted to talk about it. So you're blaming me.
No.
You're saying this is my fault.
Once I got to what was my second one,
Fighting Words.
You were like, okay, here's your last one, and I was like, it was at the point where it was almost noon, so I was like, okay, he probably has something.
Well, I don't know if you've heard. We regularly go past noon on this show.
I'll talk about what happened with Bellator
on this
Thursday.
Week. All right, all right, very good.
I
legitimately, and I'm not even kidding, I had forgotten that it was happening until Saturday night. I was like, oh right, there's a fight. No, I wasn't.
It was a very depressing weekend for mixed martial arts. Well, just not in the like serious somber way, just like, ooh. I watched that for nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Right, I get the fights weren't. But you knew what it was, though. Like, you knew
it was the potential of a Derek Lewis comeback win and then Fedor riding out on top, and
all right,
either happened.
All right, we'll talk more about that on Thursday when we get to Fighting Words. But I did realize that on Saturday night, I was checking Twitter. I was like, oh right, there's a fight tonight. I utterly forgot, and then I immediately said, this is Charles's fault. What the hell is going on over here? We might have to revisit whether or not we continue this segment moving forward because he messed that up big time. From Dave. Dave jumps in, says, Glenn, you're talking about the draft earlier on. Why is it that you are so convinced the Ravens would have to use a top 10 pick on a quarterback? Wouldn't it be a perfect scenario for them to get their guy at 22 and be able to use a top pick they acquire to make sure they get the best of the receivers in this class to surround them? Dave, this is always going to go back to, look, I get it. They made this work the last time with a late first-round pick. I bring up Jalen Hurts, who was not a first-round pick, and the Eagles clearly found something. I understand that you can find those guys. If I'm moving on from definitively a quarterback that works, at the time where they made the Joe Flacco decision, like, they knew they were still going to play Joe Flacco next season. I think they always are going to say they're trying to win Super Bowls, right? So it's the wrong way to look at it. But I don't think any of us really believe that the 2018 Ravens were like a legitimate Super Bowl contender. So if there was ever going to be a time to do something like this, in hindsight, this was probably the time, right? Like, you kind of know you're riding this one thing out. Let's see if you can't get something out of it. Like, let's see if there's not something there. But we already want to put into motion our next plan. Remember, of course, the Ravens, it's easy to forget now, but embarrassingly did a bunch of gimmicks with Lamar Jackson that season, which was just pathetic. I mean, that was lame. The gimmicks they attempted to run with Lamar Jackson like he was Taysom effing Hill. Now, you've gone all in and spent $20 million a year on an inside linebacker. And I'm not saying that, like, you only do that if you think you're going to win the Super Bowl, but you better think you're winning a Super Bowl. You better think that's, like, the difference. So the idea of another project, the idea of spending $20 million a year on Roquan Smith to let Derek Carr be your quarterback next year, or to take a flyer on a first-round guy that you're not certain about, that's badass to me. I can't guarantee it doesn't work. It's always the thing where, like, you know, that'll never work. I have no idea. Like, maybe. There's a lot of things that I didn't know were going to work in football that ended up working. Again, I didn't know that Lamar Jackson was going to work the way that he worked. I don't know that anybody knew that when the Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts, they had definitively found a guy. I think a lot of people thought that Jalen Hurts was kind of a project and was going to be a guy that they were going to use, and I don't think anybody knew that. Yes, if they were to draft Anthony Richardson with the 22nd pick in the draft, maybe Anthony Richardson could prove to be a guy, but he is certainly not at this point what Lamar Jackson was. There is no world in which you look at Anthony Richardson and see. We can go back and rehash why Lamar Jackson was sitting at the end of the first round. But what we can't do is pretend like the production, the things, like, it was unimpeachable. The issue was the NFL. The issue wasn't Lamar Jackson. In this case, the issue is more Anthony Richardson than teams unfairly judging him. There are quite reasonable questions about Anthony Richardson. He's not a sure thing. Now, there are people that would believe that maybe if Anthony Richardson had stuck around for another year, that he could have built himself up to be a top of the first round draft, or, you know, a top 10 type of pick. So is it impossible that the Ravens will draft Anthony Richardson and develop him and find something? Of course it's not impossible. But for next year, when you have built a defense that you think should be trying to win a Super Bowl, to turn it over to Anthony Richardson, or to create some sort of awkwardness with Lamar Jackson and Anthony Richardson? Why? Like, why?
I also just don't even think – I feel like Anthony Richardson won't be around at 22. Like, I think there's a lot of teams I think that need a quarterback.
I hear you, but there's a lot of questions about Anthony Richardson.
Yes.
Like, that's the problem. I get it, like, that quarterback need could just drive this. As we talked about, we've gone –
So if you want a quarterback, go all in, like you said.
2-ish years ago, there was a time where we looked around and something like – because I remember Kyle and I doing this math. There were like 28 teams in the NFL that could feel confidently that they either definitively had or might have a legit franchise quarterback. Then you started to see, you know, a group of guys retire. Ben Roethlisberger retires. Phillip Rivers retires. Matt Ryan's very clearly past that point of his career. Tom Brady's now retired. Like, there's an era of those guys that's retired. Then there's a bunch of those guys that the definitive answer became no. Like, right at the time, we had Baker Mayfield on that list. At the time, the Jets might have thought Sam Darnold was a that type of quarterback. There were a lot of guys that were in the maybe category. Now look around. How many teams in the NFL are very comfortable with their quarterback position?
I just looked very comfortable. I'd say 6.
I think it's closer to 10, right? And I say very comfortable. I would be counting, and it's fair, right?
I didn't count Dallas.
Right,
That's where my line is.
But you're not moving on from Dak Prescott. You know what I mean? Like, I get what you're saying. Like, the rest of us from the outside would say, we still have some questions about whether or not you're ever going to win anything with Dak Prescott. But they're not moving. Dak Prescott is your guy. Definitively is your guy. Like, the list is, like, the 5 at the top of the AFC are insane.
Philly, Kansas City.
Hang on, I'm doing this by name. So, Hurts, Mahomes,
Let's go
Herbert, Burrow, Herbert, Allen, Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
Then
we're getting.
Well, that's so those are the 6 that are like insane.
Then it's,
those are the 6 that you say definitively those dudes are studs. Then you have this other category where you're putting Lamar Jackson because he should be in that first category, but for whatever reason he might become available.
Guys like Dak and Kirk Cousins in that category with Lamar,
well,
I feel like
he's after. Oh, that's why I'm saying Lamar is in this category.
He gets his own category. Yeah.
It's just that for whatever reason we don't know if he's going to be the franchise quarterback in Baltimore, but he's very much in.
No
the
matter who
first,
he plays for next season,
right?
He
whatever
is in that 6.
Whatever team has Lamar Jackson, he's in. I guess it's 7. He's in this top 7 of teams that are the most comfortable with their quarterback position. Then there's, to your point, Dak Prescott. Kyler Murray, of course, is in that sort of next group right afterwards where he's not going anywhere. He's going to be the quarterback. If Matt Stafford doesn't retire, while we have concerns.
I'd say Jared Goff, you could put in that.
I think
he's already been in the Super Bowl.
I agree with you. It's a very tricky thing, right? Where if like Detroit had the opportunity to improve from Jared Goff, I think they would. I think he played well enough that I understand exactly what you're saying, but I do think if the opportunity presented itself, like if Detroit got a call from the Ravens, like, would you guys be interested? I do think they'd be. I don't think that they are set that Jared Goff's their guy as much as they're comfortable enough with Jared Goff being their guy. They think they can win with Jared Goff as their guy.
If Detroit gets a call from Vegas for Derek Carr.
No, you're not moving on from Jared Goff for Derek Carr.
So then you could say Goff is right around in
that
category.
He's in that next group of guys. I still think Prescott and Murray, because of their age, are above them, but whatever. We can put all these guys in the category. Just comfort. So top 7, Prescott, Murray, Stafford, Cousins, whoever Aaron Rodgers plays for, if he doesn't retire, for at least next year, that team is going to be comfortable with Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback, whoever it is. So Aaron Rodgers still is on the list as far as a player is concerned. We just don't know who the team. Justin Fields is going to be the guy, right? Like, he proved enough in his rookie season. Well, he's maybe not a perfect player or a totally complete player. He proved enough that undoubtedly the Chicago Bears are not going to use the number 1 pick in the draft on a quarterback. They are comfortable with the idea that Justin Fields is their quarterback. And I would even go one more for now. And it's for now. I would say that the Steelers are comfortable with the idea that Kenny Pickett is their quarterback. I don't think that's a long-term thing. I just don't think there's any world in which they're moving on from Kenny Pickett this offseason. I think they're going to go into next year definitively knowing that Kenny Pickett is their quarterback.
Ryan Tannehill go in that category?
No. I think the Titans would try to improve from Ryan Tannehill. I mean, they already drafted a quarterback last year in hopes that, like, he might be better than. I don't think there's any world in which Ryan Tannehill.
I go back to the Carr question. I think Tennessee moves on from Tannehill for someone like Carr.
I think they would see Derek Carr as an upgrade. 100. I would agree with that. There's its own category for Russell Wilson, who they're not comfortable with, but they don't have a choice but to be comfortable with. Like, they have to. And then there's the 49ers on a whole, who I don't know which one it is. The 49ers probably believe they have. Now, again, if they have the shot to get Aaron Rodgers, maybe they get Aaron Rodgers. But other than that, they probably believe that they employ a quarterback that they're comfortable with, whichever one it's going to end up being, right? So that, to me, is about the list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And again, we're squinting on a couple of these. Like, we're acknowledging that a couple of these, that's unfair to the Dolphins. I know that what we're dealing with is the injury factor. Like, that's the reason why we didn't say it. But if Tua Tagovailoa, he's a free agent, first of all. Yeah. Like, I mean, No. Like, he played really well, but he's a free agent. Like, he can go anywhere. If your point is that somebody is going to make Geno Smith their answer next year, like, yeah, I guess, but I don't know that somebody's going to do that thinking he's going to.
Yeah, you think you'd lock him down before he gets to the market if he is your guy.
Right.
I think the Seahawks internally say,
seems like a Pro Bowl weak move.
Yeah, Geno Smith had a nice season, but he's just good enough to prevent us from drafting our next quarterback. This is what I say about people that try to make it seem like Geno Smith could be the answer in Baltimore. Like, great story. Great story. But that's the guy you're turning your Super Bowl hopes to? Because he had a really good season. I'm not seeing it. But
everybody watched Trent Dilfer in this documentary.
I want to be fair to he's not impressed. Yeah. Everybody's all worked up about Trent Dilfer saying, like, who cares? Like, don't get me wrong, like I do think that he has a point to be made, which is how much easier it is for offense in general. There is a point there somewhere, but to try to saying I'm not impressed by Aaron Rodgers, like, come on, dude. Patrick Mahomes is the most talented quarterback that's ever played the position, like, ever. I get what you're saying. It's definitely the league has changed. It's way easier to play offense now. But, dude.
To be fair, he didn't say Mahomes.
He didn't say Mahomes. He said Rodgers and Brady, right? Like, those are the two that he said. Still, come on, man. Like, those guys are going to be good in any era of football.
Just talking about this makes me, like, I was looking around at some of the divisions. The NFC South has by far.
There's not a quarterback there. There's not one quarterback in the NFC South. Not one team has a quarterback. One. And by the way, we should at least have a conversation about Daniel Jones on here because he is, like, they can't move on from him at this point. They
similar
can't.
To the Seattle though. Just good enough.
It is, but he's younger, and so there is still room to say we saw him take steps forward. There's reason to believe he could take more steps forward. They can't. Seattle can move on from Geno Smith. Absolutely. Seattle can say, we like him, but we don't think he's our franchise quarterback, whereas the Giants, not yet. He played just well enough this season. The Giants can't, short of having a shot at Lamar Jackson, right? Like, it would have to be that. Remember, the Browns weren't going to be able to move on from Baker Mayfield unless it was Deshaun Watson, right? Like, they were going to be doing Baker Mayfield business. Now, we're not even considering Baker Mayfield on this list. But a year ago, the Browns had a franchise quarterback they could only move on from if they got a shot at somebody they could definitively say was better. Now, whether or not Deshaun Watson will be that.
Yeah, I was about to say, do we add Watson to the list? Given the circumstances.
Well, that's a great point. But he is definitively their franchise quarterback.
That's the ultimate by default.
They can't move on. Right?
They can't move on. Now, we've managed to balloon this number up to 19, right? Like, again, with some squinting, but we've managed to balloon it up to 19. And to the point, we know that two teams are going to go with Geno Smith and probably Derek Carr as their guys next season.
And there's even some teams that don't have good quarterback play where they have to stay with that quarterback. Like, look at the Patriots. They kind of have to stay with Mac Jones.
Mac Jones is on that list. 100% Mac Jones is on that list. So we're going to make it 20, right? Mac Jones is on the list because they're not – I say they're not moving on from, again, unless it's something extraordinary. They're not moving on from Mac Jones. But we're still only talking about 20. Two guys, and maybe one of the 49ers quarterbacks will be an answer for somebody else. Like, maybe someone will trade for Trey Lance to make him their answer. Maybe – I can't imagine somebody trading for Jimmy Garoppolo thinking that's the answer, but maybe somebody would do that with Trey Lance and commit to him as their guy. But we're still talking about there being, even with all this, if we take the teams that we're squinting with and put them in the list, there's still 12 teams that don't have anything that resembles an answer at quarterback. Anything at all. The Falcons, might give Desmond Ridder another try. Maybe.
I'll go from the bottom.
Jets absolutely do not have an answer at quarterback. Texans absolutely do not. I mean,
Colts.
The Colts absolutely do not have an answer.
Washington.
They're going to tell you they're going to let.
They're going to tell you about Heineke.
No, they're going to tell you they're going to let Sam Howell. That's what they're telling. They told everybody interviewing for their offensive coordinator job they're going to give Sam Howell. You've got to make it work with Sam Howell.
That means they're on the list.
To be clear, yes, one, that's not good enough, and two, it could just be a giant smokescreen to we know we're drafting a quarterback. We just don't want anybody to know that we're drafting a quarterback. So, yes, 1,000%.
They're around the middle, so they could have teams jump them for sure.
Commanders.
Falcons.
The Raiders.
Yep, Falcons we got. The Raiders, Jared Stidham is most certainly not the answer.
Panthers,
of course, need a quarterback.
Saints.
Bucks.
Bucks.
That's the whole division.
Yep, it certainly is. That's 9. We're missing a few teams here.
Tennessee.
Titans need again. They could run it back with Ryan Tannehill if they aren't able to do any better, but they absolutely do not have a franchise quarterback on the team.
Who's that?
Who are we missing? We have to be missing somebody. Who are we missing here?
What did you put the Rams in? What group did you put?
No, Stafford. If he's healthy,
Stafford
he's their guy until he retires. He's their guy. But hang on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and this was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 20. We're missing 2 teams somehow. Somehow we're missing 2 teams. I don't know who we're missing from this group, or I just forgot to write them down over here on this side.
We said 49ers. We said
yeah.
You said Kirk Cousins. You said Vikings.
On there,
you said Packers. What group did you put Aaron Rodgers and the Packers in? I guess.
Rodgers is over here, so he's in one of those groups.
You said you put the Bucks down, right?
Yeah, I put the Bucks down.
Quarterback.
Panthers are on. What the hell I'm doing here? I should have let somebody else be in charge of making these 2 lists. Maybe we should have just been crossing teams off.
Yeah, I should have just printed a list real quick.
Because we've got 10 teams that definitively need quarterbacks over here. That means that there's 2 more answers over here that I'm not thinking of. Whatever.
Patriots on that list somewhere.
I put Mac Jones over here. What the hell is going on? All right, stop. We're overthinking this. It's a radio segment. We shouldn't be going this hard on this. The point of all of this being, there is so many teams that need quarterbacks. Definitively need quarterbacks. Like, there's not even an argument for them about what they're doing at the quarterback position. I'm putting everybody over here that even has an argument for what they're doing at the quarterback position. Oh, the Seahawks are one of the complicating. Yeah, the Seahawks.
These 2.
Well, no, because I got the Raiders over here. Well, so the Seahawks are one of them that we're in purgatory with. Like, they need a quarterback, but it could be the quarterback they have. Like, that might be the answer is the quarterback they have. They just have to lock that up and make that decision, and right now they haven't done that, so we don't know. So it's at least 11 teams then that definitively need quarterbacks, and one of them could end up being Geno Smith. It could be internal, but they need to make that decision. That's a striking number of teams that need quarterbacks. I mean, it's a striking number of teams.
Yeah, it's not like last year where the Steelers had Kenny Pickett fall to them.
Right.
Like, this is more of a quarterback-heavy draft. Like,
it's more of a quarterback-heavy draft. Everybody keeps bringing up next year as being like the year to need a quarterback, but there's only one Caleb Williams, right? Like, if you say, well, I'd rather draft my quarterback next year, only
the first overall pick.
Only one team is going to be able to come up with the guy. Like, we're talking about Caleb Williams, like we talked about Andrew Luck, like we talked about
Joe Burrow,
the absolute NFL ready. There's no project there whatsoever. There's no dispute. Caleb Williams is NFL quarterback on day 1 when he arrives. And by the way, it took Trevor Lawrence a couple of days to figure out how to be an NFL quarterback. We're now finally we see it. We get it. We get why everybody was so hot and bothered about Trevor Lawrence. But it even took him a couple of minutes. So if you're making your decision about quarterback, like, that's why it goes back to the insanity of choosing to move on from having the answer. Even if you liked Trevor Lawrence at the time, it took Trevor Lawrence the better part of a couple of years to become that guy. You've built up a roster that should otherwise be mostly Super Bowl worthy. I get it. Wide receiver is the big, the 20,000-pound elephant in the room, right? Like, you don't have Super Bowl caliber wide receiver play on this roster right now. But outside of that, everything else about the roster screams competitive enough to win a Super Bowl. Imagine taking any step backwards at all at the quarterback position. And this is a debate I got into with somebody from the radio show on Sunday. In order to say, hey, we think that the Ravens could be good enough because you would get more assets and more picks, and you could even further improve the roster around Derek Carr, you have to have a perfect roster with high-level quarterback play in order to break through. Patrick Mahomes is unlike anything we've ever seen in the history of the NFL. They don't even have a perfect roster. And it takes high-level quarterback play and a damn well-built roster in order to be able to beat Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, in order to be able to have a shot at winning a Super Bowl. I just can't fathom signing up for any risk of not having that at all. It's what makes this so insane to me whenever we have this conversation. I don't know where we just went there. I don't know what just happened, but whatever. That we talked about whatever it was we were supposed to talk about. Dave, I blame you. Dave wanted to talk about Anthony. Anthony, imagine that being your answer. Well, yeah, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence all exist. But why don't we just take a shot with Anthony Richardson? Maybe. I can't definitively say there's no chance. I can't say that Anthony Richardson couldn't become the next Jalen Hurts. But you're staring at that and you're signing up for that being your answer? You're signing up for? Well, let's just give Anthony Richardson a shot. When you're staring at that? Couldn't be me, dog. Could not be me. No freaking way. All right, we'll come back in. We'll get a tidbit and tubular to wind things down for a Friday edition of the program. Again, don't forget.
A Friday edition?
What did I say? What the hell is going on, man? Yeah, I wish. I really wish. Got a lot to do this week, actually. I need a few more days to prepare for. This thing where lacrosse season is starting for me this weekend is a real issue because unlike basketball, when all you got to do is be prepared for a 10-person roster.
Yeah, 50.
And it's not like in football, you just sort of accept you're not really going to prepare for the entirety of the roster. You're going to prepare for as much as you prepare for. Like in lacrosse, you got to be prepared for at least 20, I would say, 20 players. You got to be like really, really in on. You need to be in for at least the top two midfield lines. You know, the short stick defensive. Like you got to be in for the rope unit. You got to be in for. Like, you got to be really prepared for about 20-ish players when it comes to lacrosse. So, the first games of the season, especially because I got a big one this week with Loyola and Maryland, not sure if you've heard, they're pretty good. There's a little bit of interest in everything they do. I need a little time this week. I could use, maybe Thursday can be the Charles and Griffin show, and I can just
Let's talk. We'll preview
out.
the UFC.
Yeah, you'll just talk nothing but
2-hour
fights
preview
on Thursday's show. Hey, don't forget that you can still sign up right now. Whether it's you're feeling the Eagles or the Chiefs, place your Super Bowl bets with your favorite team and pick from hundreds of fun prop bets. Thousands of dollars in special sign-up offers with top sportsbooks are available at PressBoxOnline.com/offers. Go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers right now and join the fun with great offers from FanDuel, BetMGM, Barstool, and more. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
There's something for everyone this February at Laurel Park. Come watch live horse racing every Friday through Sunday and join us on Saturday, February 18th for the Winter Stakes Spectacular featuring 6 stakes races and $900,000 in purses, including the General George and Barbara Fritchie Stakes. The fun doesn't stop there. Stick around for our Winter Mardi Gras celebration with live music, delicious food and drinks, and a carnival atmosphere. Plus, don't miss out on President's Day holiday racing on Monday, February 20th. Visit laurelpark.com for more info. That's laurelpark.com for more. See you at the track.
Another Orioles season is in the books, and the Bat-Around was there every step of the way as the Birds posted their first winning season in 6 years. And after promoting 2 #1 overall prospects in Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson, Mike Elias has said it's liftoff from here. Hi, I'm Paul Valley, and along with my co-host Zach Goodman, we'll be here every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon all off season, discussing every signing, trade, and waiver claim as we navigate the cold winter months that lead to spring training. You can watch us at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline and Facebook.com/PressBoxSports, or listen live at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. And if you miss a show, you can find us anywhere you get your podcasts. So tune into the Bat-Around with Paul Valley and Zach Goodman every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon right here at PressBox Sports.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn, over 4100 North Point Boulevard.
If you need more of Glenn, you can also hear him every Sunday with Rita on 105.7 The Fan. But also, if you need more of Glenn, what's wrong with you?
Thinking about making a change in your career path in your life? The Baltimore County Police Department is hiring. Find out more. Join BaltimoreCountyPD.com. Very competitive salaries for cadets over $30,000. So you know somebody who is struggling to launch after high school, the young person that needs some guidance, some direction, might be a good path for them. If you've been a career officer looking for a new home, they are looking for you. Lateral officers, I think it's something like 64,000, and then the number for new officers is over 60,000 as well. So a lot of great opportunities for you in the Baltimore County Police Department, advancement programs, specialized groups, just a lot of great chances for you to find your calling within the Baltimore County Police Department. Join BaltimoreCountyPD.com in order to find out more. As we wind down for a Tuesday edition of the show, definitely not Friday, Tuesday. Let's get a tidbit. Tidbit is brought to you today by your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
All right, so Klay Thompson, he hit 12 threes last night in the Warriors win. And that
just
was
after I had written off the Warriors.
Right.
Just after
you did?
not really, but I sort of said probably. I did definitively say there is no team to be. As much as the Nuggets have separated themselves in the standings, I don't believe that they are definitively the team to beat in the West. And what I said was and with Steph Curry now being hurt,
probably works out for him because he'll come back just in time for the playoffs, and then he'll beat Steph Curry.
I would still argue that maybe
Klay Thompson's clearly back.
I'd still argue that maybe the Mavericks are the team to beat, right? I mean, we got to see what it looks like.
I know.
We have to see what it looks like, and we have to see how invested Kyrie really is. If he's invested, if he cares, if he's going to try, then I think the Mavericks could end up proving themselves to be the team to beat in the West.
Yeah, I know. I feel like Dinwiddie was a really good point guard for that team. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I get it.
All right, so anyway, Klay, so that was the 8th time that he has hit 10 or more threes in a game, which is the second most games with 10-plus threes all time. And he remains on a list now of players that have hit 10 threes in a game multiple times. So players that have hit 10-plus threes in a game, multiple games. And that list includes only 6 players, including Klay. So I'm asking you to see.
I'm going to guess Steph Curry is one of them.
Steph Curry would be number 1. He has done that 22 times, which is by far and away the most. Klay is second with 8.
My first guess would be Damian Lillard.
Damian Lillard is third. He has done it 4 times.
I'm going to say Kobe Bryant.
Kobe Bryant only did this once.
So wait, this is...
So I'm asking for players who have done
did
it
multiple times.
Yeah.
Right.
James Harden.
James Harden has done it 3 times. He's on the
How about Trae Young?
Trae Young has not done it multiple times. I'm not sure if he's done it once either. Seems like something he would do.
Right?
I won't say.
Why don't you settle down over there?
Okay. I'm saying Kevin Durant, but he doesn't give like a volume shooter.
It is not Kevin Durant.
Volume shooters. You got to think of
Well, that's why I said Kobe, right? That was the. This is tricky. Because they're all also have to be. This did not happen in previous eras of the NFL.
Yeah.
This all had the NFL. God, what is going on with me today? I'll still give Ray Allen a shot.
Ray Allen has not done it multiple times.
Which is a little bit surprising, but only a little bit, again, because the game is just so different. Damn, how many more are there still?
Paul George.
3?
We're looking for 2 more.
2 more?
Not Paul George. So 1 is active, 1 is no longer active, but he played within the last...
1 is active, 1 is no longer active. 1 is active, 1 is no longer active.
I'm trying to think now of just guys who just fill their stat sheet.
Right.
His last season was 2020.
Jamal Crawford.
Not Jamal
Crawford.
Crawford.
That's a good one.
That is a good
I like
guess,
that.
Not Jamal Crawford.
Not Jamal Crawford.
Devin Booker.
Ooh, God.
Not Devin Booker.
It's a little bit surprising, actually. I was going to kick myself over.
I think he's won a 3-point contest at least once.
Who the hell knows who's won it? Zach LaVine.
Zach LaVine. He has done it.
It's the only guy I could name that's won a 3-point. Or maybe he didn't even win. Maybe he won the dunk contest.
Oh, yeah.
Both, I think.
Did he win both of them?
I think he's won both.
I couldn't tell you anybody else who's won a 3-point contest.
All-star warrior right there.
So one more. This player is no longer active. He last played in 2020 in the bubble.
Played in 2020 in the bubble. It's hard for me to remember who retired after.
Don't want to give it away.
You don't want to give it away. So there's something that if you told us.
Yeah, the thing that I want to tell, because he's still an athlete, not in the NBA though.
J.R. Smith.
Oh, God. He's a golfer, right?
Yeah, J.R. Smith is a collegiate golfer.
I was on the right track, but I was like, 10 threes. Oh,
God.
That's 30 points right there.
Right? It's hard for me to remember that anybody would let J.R. Smith stay on the floor long enough to do that, right?
J.R. Smith, James Harden, Zach LaVine, Lillard, Clay.
That's a weird group. That's a really, it's the type of group that, makes you wonder really how impressive it is.
That's the type of group, they're going for 50 in February.
Yeah, they just wake up one morning and they're like, "Yep, tonight's the night. I don't care about anything going on in the game. This is what we're doing."
There was actually a highlight the other night. Damian Lillard, he had his dribble stopped from 45 feet away, and he had to stop his dribble, and nobody came to pick him up. It was Drew Holiday ran off him because he picked up his dribble. And he just threw it up, swished it 45 feet away, the second quarter. Not even shot clock running down, just.
Caitlin Clark does that too, by the way. Yeah. God damn, she is fun to watch play. Oh, it's unbelievable.
Not against Maryland.
Yeah, it was rough to watch her do it against Maryland. She went from 40 points against Maryland to a casual triple-double against whoever they were playing on Sunday. Like one of those, she didn't even really try all that hard, and then she had a triple-double. Caitlin Clark is nuts, dude. Yeah, she is just nuts. All right, good stuff. Tubular brought to you by the print issue of Press Box. Only a little bit more than a week, literally right about a week left for you to pick up this print issue of Press Box with Adley Rutschman, our Mogaba Sports Person of the Year, on the cover. Go get it for free right now at your neighborhood Royal Farms, any of the hundreds of locations around town where you find Press Box. You can read it all. PressBoxOnline.com/bestof. As we mentioned earlier tonight, Maryland, Michigan State, 9 o'clock on ESPN2. Once again, I feel like Robbie Hummel is almost like the Maryland's personal color man. He's on the broadcast again tonight. Big Ten hoops, Rutgers, Indiana at 6:30 on Big Ten Network. I believe Illinois, Minnesota was canceled because of some COVID issues that Minnesota's dealing with.
So hopefully Maryland didn't.
I think the word was they were already dealing with injury issues, and there's a combination.
So
they just don't have enough players to play the game.
It sounds
so maybe
like season woes.
Right.
It also sounds like yes, they have one win.
They're just using COVID to not.
I don't want to be that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that.
Like I said, we'll call it season woes.
Yeah, it's rough. The rest of college basketball, find at GlennClarkRadio.com. TNT, Suns, Nets at 7:30. And the big one tonight, of course, is Thunder, Lakers at 10 because LeBron James is 36 points away from Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's scoring record. When I was doing the math on this, we were talking about it on Sunday. I said it's TNT game. He's definitely going to go, make sure he gets the record tonight. But it's also a TNT game on Thursday. I don't remember who they play on Thursday. One of them, I think it's the Bucks on Thursday, maybe that they play.
Yeah, they have a stretch of I think it's the Bucks.
I think they play
the Clippers
or the Warriors. I think on Saturday.
Yeah,
Saturday
so they just missed the
Saturday is the big
time,
ABC game. That's at 8:30. So that would be a far more desirable. But unless they sit him on Thursday for some reason, which
they won't because of the media coverage this is already getting.
Right,
and they're 13th in the West.
So
sitting him it would be very clear what they're trying to do.
So. I'm going to bet it happens tonight. I'm going to bet he gets 40 tonight and he breaks the record tonight. But if for some reason he doesn't.
I hope he kind of stops at 35.
Why?
Put in a good 35 tonight.
Because you get more hype.
Get it on Giannis. Make it a highlight worthy.
I don't really care one way or the other.
Him getting the all-time on, Alexei Pugachev versus Giannis.
I hear you. But that's tonight at 10 on TNT. ESPN Plus and Hulu for Oilers Red Wings at 7:30, and USA for WWE NXT tonight at 8. Non-sports,
of course, the State of the Union address.
That's right. It's on every network
at 9. So you got to pick between Maryland or the State of the Union.
It's not really a
Maryland and LeBron.
This has nothing to do with who the president is. I don't care who the president is. watching the state. I know somebody's going to yell at me like, you should take this stuff more seriously and understand the importance of it. God damn, I just can't. Tell me tomorrow if there was I don't need a stump speech. If there was some real news, if something is announced of relevance to me tonight, like inform me in a tweet or something like that.
And that's really it. All That Breathes is a documentary coming out on HBO today. It's about so birds started like dying in India, and these two brothers like looked into it, and it's apparently it's like the most critically acclaimed documentary ever, at least based on the trailer.
I watched Banshees of Inisherin last night. Not for me.
Really?
Not for me. Two thoughts on it. One, it's a well-made film. You have to wait forever for something to happen. It's just a bunch of nothing for a long time. Now, the concept is kind of clever, and I get that it's a movie that's trying to make you think bigger than that about relationships and things like that, but I get sick. Also, I started White Lotus last night. No.
So you watched like the very first episode.
The first season. It's too much waiting for something to happen. It's too much, stuff on the periphery. Like, it's too much just scenes and not with it not being all that funny. Like, you can make up for periphery by it being really funny. It's casually funny. Like, in moments, there are the way these characters exist is funny. Like, there are times where there's not a joke that's told, but you laugh at it. You're like, you serious? Was that really your reaction in that moment? Like, but it's not intentional funny. And I'm sick of waiting for things to happen. Like, you got to have something happen in order for me. You can't keep waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and there be no action and just do, again, periphery scenes and try to make a show out of that. I'll keep watching because everybody keeps saying how good it is, but not feeling it. Not feeling it at all. Gotcha. White Lotus.
Yeah, I watched like the first episode, I think, when it first came out, and I was like, yeah, you know what? I just didn't feel like watching it.
I
don't know if I'll revisit it.
There's nothing there for me. Like,
I mean, after this,
everybody
review,
says season 2 is like the season, but like season 1 got a bunch of awards as well. Like
great.
Not feeling it. Not feeling it. And that's how I feel about Banshees of Inisherin. Like, again, clever. I get it. There's some commentary involved. Like, do something. Anything. Do something. And it wasn't until, I don't want to give it away, something finally happened and they were like, oh, now it's a movie. But it took me 45 minutes to get to the part where it became a movie. And I
got to watch Plane. That's a movie. Plane.
I will watch Plane. I will watch it, I promise you, at some point. All right, very good. Thanks today to Sammi Siragusa. That was a wonderful conversation that we had with her, Tony Siragusa's daughter. Thanks also to Anthony Adams, new UMBC soccer coach, as well as Kyle Stackpole from CBS and Patrick Stevens. We'll get all of it up in the greatest hits section of the
Oh, my God, it's so good.
tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. Tomorrow on the program, Sean Morris from Big Ten Network. We'll talk some Terps with him. Drew, I'm sure, for better or worse, will stop by. Anything?
Stuff and things.
Oh, boy. All right, stuff and things. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including the Baltimore County Police Department, Royal Farms, Costas Inn, Maryland Jockey Club, Grade 8's Memorabilia, Maryland Vascular Specialists, UMBC Athletics, your local Toyota dealer, and buyatoyota.com. Charles, you are on Instagram, or is it all socials?
AP28.
Are you on Twitter at all? No. Okay, yeah, just Instagram. Give him a follow there. Of course, follow Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. We're doing some TikTok content this week. We're getting it back at Glenn Clark Radio for all of those. Thanks to I did all the thank yous. All right. Have a great Tuesday night. Go Maryland. Duke sucks.